All right, everybody. Pat Leonard here from MetLife Stadium. Minnesota Vikings 28, New York Giants 6. Well, Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, their mission was to prove that New York's first round pick was a franchise quarterback, and they did it. Sam Darnold looks like he's a franchise quarterback after facing the New York Giants. Sam Darnold has his way with the Giants defense. Shane Bowen's defensive shell, the zone defense not getting it done. Way too easy for Darnold, for Kevin O'Connell, who coached the pants off Shane Bowen, while Brian Daboll was flummoxed by what Brian Flores, his head coaching competition in 2022, threw at him. Wasn't always all-out pressure, but we're bringing players from different angles, different sides. The Giants do not score an offensive touchdown, do not score a touchdown in the game at all. The count right now after week one is Saquon Barkley, 3 touchdowns. New York Giants as a team, 0. A nightmare start for Big Blue. John Mara was pacing pensively outside his suite in between the third and fourth quarter after Daniel Jones' pair of interceptions, including the pick 6. And after the game, he was walking by me. And John Mara, always a nice enough man to say hello. But in this moment, in the frustration of this postgame, understandably, when I approached him and asked him if he had comment, he did not break stride, and he did not even look at me, did not break his gaze or stride, kept going. Understandable that the Giants co-owner now has a lot to think about. It wasn't just Daniel Jones, even though the crowd booed the fact that Jones was still in the game after his pick 6. He came back onto the field for the next drive, and the crowd was booing the fact that Jones came back onto the field with the offense. But it was way more than Jones. Jones was sacked 5 times, hit 12 more by the Vikings pass rush. The offensive line that is supposedly fixed was not. Giants defensively not doing a good enough job stopping the run. Aaron Jones was a major weapon in this game. I predicted that. I told you that was going to happen, and it definitely came to pass. Also interesting, Dexter Lawrence after the game taking on the fans a little bit. A lot of the Giants players saying things like, we understand the fans are booing because we need to put a better product on the field. Dexter Lawrence's quote was, I don't respect it, honestly. I get it. They want to see their team win. It's a rough patch. I mean, it just is what it is. Just a nightmare start. And John Mara already has to be thinking about what to do, not just with his quarterback, but with Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. Daboll, full-time play caller, a disastrous start. Jones and Daboll both asked if the quarterback's job is on the line heading into week 2 as the starter with Drew Lock behind him. Daboll said it's not in his mind right now. Daniel Jones said he knows he has to play better, and he will work on doing that. But then from a general manager standpoint, even if this is supposed to be a fix into the long term, you can't put an embarrassing, non-competitive product on the field. You can't have your number 5 overall pick, Kayvon Thibodeau, from a few years ago, being largely a non-factor, while Evan Neal, your number 7 overall pick in that draft, is not even playing in the game. Just one example of what is so embarrassing and unacceptable about the product that's on the field. The coach not delivering, the GM not delivering, the quarterback not delivering. 5 drop passes of Daniel Jones, Theo Johnson, Malik Neighbors, Jalen Hyatt, Devin Singletary, Tyrone Tracy Jr. Wasn't just the quarterback, but it wasn't good enough from the quarterback either. We are sponsored here by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, and then we will get right to your questions, the fan Q&A portion, and it's as important as ever that we hear from the fans after a game like this. Is as important as ever. Thank you for being here. All the diehards, all the talking ballers. We're going to try to get you all the information you're looking for. And it's a little bit of a therapy session today, right? Because we're going to talk about a lot of things that didn't go right. And then hopefully I can give you, if not hope, some insight on some things that are encouraging. Brought to you by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code Talkin Ball 25 or access it through the QR code on your screen right here, you will get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. So that's boomchaga.com. Subscribe and save option order. Put in Talkin Ball 25 or use the QR code here. You buy it, you get the discount. You don't have to stay subscribed. You can buy that first bag and then cancel the subscription if you don't like the product. I do think you will. But honestly, if you want to support the podcast, the best way to support Talkin Ball Live right now is to purchase a bag of Boom Chaga. Thank you to all those who have so far and those who will. Speaking of supporting the channel, if you have a question or comment and you want it answered first or immediately, you can purchase a super chat or super sticker on the channel here, and your comment or question will light up for me, and I will add it right to the top of the queue. You'll go right to the top of the queue of our conversation, and I will get to it immediately or next if I'm talking about something then. If you don't want to purchase a super chat or super sticker, just please hit the like button while we are live here on the Believe Network and on the PL on NFL YouTube channel. New York Daily News columnist and Giants beat writer here, my 9th NFL season. Very grateful to be here, grateful that you guys are here. Hopefully can continue to deliver valuable and accurate information, even though my 4-13 season record prediction looks smart at the moment, but I don't want to be right about things like that because let's just be honest, it's bad for business when the team is bad. Also brought to you here by Estate 98 Coffee, an all-natural specialty coffee with no sugar that is convenient for on-the-go professionals and parents. It takes me less than 10 seconds to make a delicious Estate 98 iced coffee and only a minute more to make a hot coffee or latte from this all-natural concentrate. Go to estate98.com/talkinball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. Also brought to you here by Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200K. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today, get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. And FYI, Giants and NFL fans, on Monday, early afternoon, come back to the Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard, whether you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast on audio, or the YouTube page, PL on NFL. And Benny Fowler, Super Bowl champion, former NFL wide receiver, and I will be breaking down the entire league, not just the Giants, but the top headlines from around the entire league. We're going to be doing that weekly. Really excited for that. All right, we're going to start off with D-Kit, who purchases a super chat and sets a great example always as a diehard fan who's also supporting the channel. Thank you so much, D-Kit. He says, no, Pat, I do not blame the O-line here, not one bit. Daniel Jones was not on time. He was inaccurate, and he was generally terrible. Daboll and Bowen were awful too. It's done. D-Kit, I do not think you're wrong that some of the hits and some of the sacks were on Daniel Jones' indecisiveness, his ability or his desire and his attempt at keeping plays alive. I don't think you're wrong about that. I do think, however, that Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle was leaky. Greg Van Roten got blown by on 1 3rd down where Daniel Jones and Wan'Dale Robinson miscommunicated and didn't connect. And as Malik Neighbors said, this is a quote from Malik Neighbors. He said, so Malik Neighbors did not have his first target until late in the first quarter, didn't have his first catch until late in the first quarter. And here was his quote about his day. He said, Daniel said he was trying to get me the ball. He saw a lot of pressure in his face. So, I mean, I can't control that. They tried to get me the ball. Just stuff wasn't working right. So we just got to fix that up. So that's coming from the Giants' number 1 wide receiver saying Daniel Jones was trying to get him the ball, too much pressure in his face. But D-Kit, not going to sit here and tell you that it was just the line. It was Jones as well. But I think it's important to point out that this was a full team loss. Yes, the quarterback played a huge part in it too. Thank you for the super chat to set an example. James checks in and says, Pat, I saw you with Authentic. You are dope, my brother. Please keep it real on Daniel Jones. You got it, James. Thank you. Hey, James, let's just talk about Daniel Jones really quickly. These numbers don't even tell an accurate story. 186 passing yards, 22 of 42 passing, 2 interceptions, 6 rushes for 15 yards. The bottom line is this team couldn't make plays, and even when they did, there were penalties, right? They had 3 penalties in a span of 4 plays during one drive in the first half. Everything that could go wrong pretty much went wrong here. Jones was a part of that. Daniel said flat out, I have to play better too. But it reminds me a lot of last year. Low-scoring team, not getting in the end zone. The team not playing well and the line not playing well, but still can't excuse the quarterback because the quarterback played poorly. And let's face it, and I was here live for every game, every play at MetLife Stadium, it not only was bad for Daniel Jones, James, it got worse as the game went on. I think unquestionably the circumstance and the fan reaction to their ineptitude early on got to Daniel Jones, got to the offensive line. He said flat out, it's our job to give them something to cheer about, and we take that seriously. So Daniel knows it's on him. He knows it's part of the drill. He's been in New York for long enough to understand. But that was bad. That was really bad. It was bad from Jones. And frankly, to me, this is my opinion now. Drew Lock was limited all week with that oblique injury, right, in practice. He wasn't on the injury report. He was active as the backup. Tommy DeVito was only the emergency quarterback. So DeVito is not allowed to play unless both quarterbacks are ineligible if he's inactive as the third emergency QB, right? So that was the situation. So if they had to go to anybody in this game, it would have been Drew Lock. But to me, Drew Lock is a guy who he hasn't been taking the reps in practice. He's been coming back from an injury that Joe Schoen said on the broadcast in the preseason that like wasn't that bad, but it turns out obviously it is. He's available, but I don't even think he's necessarily capable of doing everything that he needs to as a quarterback right now. So that's the scary thing about this as well. He can throw a ball now, but limited, not taking important reps. Barbara says Dimes was as bad as Hurts. Danny Dimes was worse than Jalen Hurts, no question about it. Here's the thing about the Eagles, right? The Eagles played an imperfect game. Hurts made some key mistakes in that game. If you're an Eagles fan or you're just an NFL fan watching, you're saying there's something wrong here with Jalen Hurts, where he sees the field, some of his decisions. His team scored 34 points, right? So, like, you know, Lamar Jackson, I always talk to people about him when he's an MVP candidate, those kind of things. Lamar Jackson, even when he turns the ball over 3 times, still scores 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 2 rushing, 3 passing, whatever it is. NFL football is not supposed to be perfect. Football is not supposed to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. The thing about the Giants is they not only make the mistakes, it snowballs on them. It constantly snowballs on them. It gets worse. And then to me, you know, we'll get to this in a second. I was going to make a point about Brian Daboll, but Fashu KB checks in and says, I hope Brian Daboll doesn't get fired for Daniel Jones and Joe Schoen's mistakes. If anything, Brian should stay and Joe and DJ need to be gone. That's an interesting take. I, though, for sure, say they're all in a pot. I do agree with you on this. This can't be a situation where you just scapegoat one person and other people skate. This is bad enough that everybody is on the chopping block right now for stuff like this. This is bad enough that nobody can skirt accountability. And Brian Daboll did not. He said, put it all on me. But it can't just be all on him. I hear what you're saying, Fashu. But look, he played a part in this too. Not only as a play caller. Listen, I look at that play that Van Ginkel makes on the pick 6, and I think part of that, you could get angry at Daniel Jones, you could get angry at whatever. And yeah, Jones is his fault too there. Yes, he's at fault, of course. To me, that's recognition from Van Ginkel about what the formation is, what the Giants like to do, what they try to do in certain formations. I guarantee you that was something he was prepared for, and Daboll playing it right into their hands with that play call. Also, to me, one of the worst parts of this game for Brian Daboll was late in the first quarter. They had a 2nd and 5 and a 3rd and 2. And on plays where it looked like could get an easy short completion for a first down, Daboll runs Daniel Jones twice, doesn't get it, and then on 4th and 3 from the 49, his offense needing a jolt, punts the ball back to the Vikings. That is a white flag decision. That is a decision of, I don't trust that we're not going to lose more yardage. I don't trust our passing game. I don't trust whether it's your protection, whether it's your quarterback's ability to recognize blitzes and coverages and pressures, whatever it was that he didn't trust there, it looks like all of the above. And you lose a game when you make a decision like that. That game was over when he made that decision. Over. That game was over when he made that decision. It riles me up. Reminds me of the, conversely, it's not just the punting element of it. It's the wrong decision in the wrong moment. Like in the Philadelphia playoff game, right off the bat, they're down 7-0. And for I think it was 4th and 8 around midfield. It's like a desperation, go for it, right? The pressure gets to Daniel Jones. They turn it over on downs. Eagles go right down, jam the ball down their throat and score 14-0. Game's over before the first quarter's even over in 2022. Drives me crazy. It's bad coaching. Intel says, so New York Giants fans can now stop the Daniel Jones conversation, please. Fire Daboll, says D-Pat, clean house. Candyman says, clean house is right, D-Pat. Jacob says, smack that like and sub button for Pat on your way in. Jacob, thank you so much for saying that as always and supporting. Yes, everybody, if you're new here or if you're just a Giants fan disgruntled, you're finding this as a therapeutic place to be. We are Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard. I'm the NFL columnist and Giants beat writer for the New York Daily News in my 9th season covering this team and league. And we are on the Believe Network here on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard, listening on audio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or here on video on YouTube from MetLife Stadium live. I come right out of the Giants locker room and out of Brian Daboll's press conference. I give you guys the insight, information, and answers that you're looking for. I've talked to a lot of the players after the game, got a lot of insight from these guys. So as you ask questions, I will answer them with my insights. And if I have something to just go off the cuff with, I will share it. For example, I thought this was interesting on a day where a lot of things were disappointing, discouraging, frustrating, and aggravating. I went up to Graham Gano and I said, always Mr. Reliable, because he was 2 for 2 on field goals with a 50-yarder and a 23-yarder. And Graham says to me, I almost cried after that first field goal because I didn't know if I would play again. It's nice to be back out there. You love the game. It's special. Graham said this was 2 serious knee injuries he's had in his career now. So when he had that injury, he had serious doubts about whether he would ever play football again. And he told me that because he had years left on his contract, not only did he not want to stop playing football, he felt like he owed it because he had years left on his contract to fulfill those years, to keep being reliable. And he said, I want to do it for the fans. And I know it means a lot to the fans. I want to help this team win. I thought that was a great thing for Graham Gano to say. He shared that with me personally. So those are the kind of conversations I have in the locker room that I think are really valuable context, right? Win or lose, those types of things create a context of what the team is looking like, the personalities in the locker room, and how they are handling things. Wow, look at all these super chats rolling in. D-Kit says, we cannot win with this quarterback and this regime. Novice of Things checks in with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Novice. And says, losses happen, but non-competitive football cannot be tolerated. Resume generating performance from too many people today. No doubt. No doubt. And listen, even at the end of the game, did you see the way the Vikings were running the ball more easily? Aaron Jones getting downhill. Really, it was one of those things, where it looked like the team was kind of, their shoulders were slumped. They saw the writing on the wall where it's going. They also see, believe me, what this season could be again. Deontay Banks said a version of, he said, this isn't last year because it was a different vibe last year. We barely could move the ball. We have better leadership, he said now. But like Bobby Okereke, he knows it's not good enough. He said to me, obviously the fans are probably feeling this is just like last year. Not quite the start like last year against Dallas, but this is still not the result you want to make the fans proud of, and you've been working all off season for. We take that to heart. It means a lot to us. He went on to say to me, we have family and friends in the stands. We want to play hard for them. We want to play hard for the fans. We want to give something to the organization. This means a lot to us, and this is unacceptable. He knows it. They're going to try to turn around and do better against Washington next week. Easier said than done, though. I asked Brian Daboll, what are the reasons to say this is going to turn around? He said, basically, we're going to go back to the drawing board, not going to get into what other people think or say. But he was asked, basically, what are you hanging your hat on after this game? And he said, yeah, there's nothing I can mention at the moment. D Kit says, I flew in for this game. I'm disgusted. Wow. Imagine being D Kit right now. Imagine being a fan who flew in for this special weekend. You have the Friday night fan fest with all the legends and the drone show and everything they did to honor the organization to preview what could be a big weekend. Then you have the 5K, just a lot of fanfare. And listen, this is the most frustrating thing, D-Kit, is that, this is like the medium Pepsi stuff. You have like the booze during. It's almost like every time the Giants try to do something special, the ineptitude of their current product overshadows what they're trying to honor about their past. Now, they don't have a lot to honor about the present. That's part of the problem. That is the problem. But you look at a game like this, the fans are booing the team off the field at halftime as Bill Parcells, Tom Coughlin, Eli Manning, Phil Simms, Lawrence Taylor, and all the legends of the organization are walking onto the field to be honored for the 100th season, the centennial for the franchise. This is as bad as it gets, as frustrating as it gets for John Mara and for Giants ownership. And this is the stuff that gets people fired. You look at Saquon Barkley with 3 touchdowns for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Giants as a team don't even have any. And Friday night, John Mara's face with his head in his hand plastered all over social media with people mocking the Giants franchise, mocking them for what they did, knowing that in fairness to Mara, he did not want to see Saquon Barkley go. He didn't want to let him go. He trusted his general manager, but he said to us before the season, basically, you let them do what they want to do. You trust it, and then maybe you bitch about it later. And that could be what we see. There could be some noise coming from the ownership box sooner rather than later. Chris checks in with a super chat. Thank you so much, Chris. He says, hate to say it, but time to start over at quarterback, head coach, and general manager. It's crazy to say this early, but this game, not only did they have to start well for several reasons about Daniel Jones playing for his career, Brian Daboll taking over as play caller after a dysfunctional last season, all the reasons why you just wanted to see some improvement, Joe Schoen adding Brian Burns, right, making the decision of Neighbors in, Saquon Barkley out, those kind of things. But let's just face it, this is a team right now that it's hard to look me in the eyes right now and say, Pat, here's why these guys deserve more than this year to get this done. Here's why Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll, and Daniel Jones are misunderstood. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it, right? Because after that Saquon Barkley performance, the Giants are in the spotlight as dysfunctional as ever. And not only listen, you can lose a game. Like, look at the Packers game against the Eagles. The Green Bay Packers lose a game on Sunday to the Philadelphia Eagles. Their quarterback gets hurt. It's not what people want to see, but they score 29 points. Xavier McKinney, the former Giants safety, has an interception. You see signs of progress or promising things that you can build on. Rashawn Gary, some of their wide receivers making plays, Christian Watson, etc. The Giants have nothing to hang their hat on after this game. Nothing. Screaming here in the press box. Someone's probably going to come in here and tell me to chill out. But this is frustrating. I'm telling you, this is frustrating. It's frustrating for you. It's frustrating for me. Candyman checking in. $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Candyman. Formula Red. What's up, Formula? Thank you so much for the super chat. Formula says it's a myriad of reasons, but Daniel Jones is the X factor. Until he is off the team, this is what the offense will be. It hurts to watch him play. The fan base is done with Daniel Jones. That was very clear today. The Giants, it would seem, are on the verge of being done with him too. Brian Daboll, like I said his mind is not there. As I asked him the question of, are you considering benching him going into week 2 against the Washington Commanders? But I'm just telling you guys right now, this team loses to the Washington Commanders next week on the road to a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. All bets are off for everybody. All bets are off. D-Kit says, look, Pat, I've been watching football for a long time. When the guy behind center plays like that, Pat, it's not NFL caliber quarterback play or coaching. And I think that's one thing I want to make sure it doesn't get lost here. I want to make sure it doesn't get lost that Daniel Jones was bad. Of course he was bad. Brian Daboll's offensive play calling and coaching and Brian Flores' ability to exploit the play calls, the scheme, the offense, Daniel Jones. I mean, it wasn't even a fair fight. Coaching-wise, it wasn't even a fair fight. And let me just say this, too. Wink Martindale gave the Giants a schematic advantage in a lot of games they played, understands how to attack pressures, been in the NFL a long time, had several top defenses in Baltimore. Top personnel, top defenses. They forced, I think, 31 turnovers last year, tied for tops in the league. The Giants did force 2 turnovers today. Darius Moisow, rookie linebacker, gets an interception off a Dexter Lawrence quarterback hit on Darnold. And then early on, of course, Drew Phillips with a nice hit, dislodging it from C.J. Ham, fumble recovered by Bobby Okereke. But this defense did not have enough answers. Kevin O'Connell had an easy time, in my opinion, coaching his way around what Shane Bowen threw at him schematically. The soft zones don't do it. The Giants don't have the personnel to play it. They're not good at it. The pass rush, which they've invested a lot in, did not get to Sam Darnold enough. And that was something that became clear to me talking to some people in the locker room. It was like, yeah, the coverage wasn't working. The pass rush wasn't either. Formula Red says, how is it that fans could see years ago that he wasn't good, but our own organization, NFL scouts, couldn't see the same about Daniel Jones? You just need a set of eyes to see that he didn't have it. Also, listen, I like Daniel a lot. I root for him. I hope that he turns it around. But Dave Gettleman, of course, Dave Gettleman drafted Dexter Lawrence, drafted Andrew Thomas, drafted Saquon Barkley, drafted Daniel Jones. That's at least 2 of their best players. That's 2 of their best players on the team right now. That's 3 of their best players from last season. But Daniel Jones, number 6 overall pick by Dave Gettleman. If the version of Jones we saw here on the field is the version of Jones that's going to end his legacy in New York, how are we looking at Dave Gettleman's pick there? How are we looking at the Giants' loyalty to a player like that? How are we looking at the Giants' loyalty to quarterbacks and players when they're not playing well enough? This is unacceptable. Savage Steve says, first overall pick, here we come. A quarterback can't save this. I got a text from somebody not in the league, but I got a text from a friend who is very attuned to the NFL today. Said the Panthers are playing number 1 overall pick chess by giving the Giants Brian Burns. So those are the kind of comments that people are making right now. No flow or rhythm on offense, Novice of Things says. Novice, thank you for checking in with that super chat. Steve, thank you. And like I said, Formula Red and everyone who's weighed in, D-Kit, with the super chat so far, thank you so much. I will still get to all your questions in the queue, but the super chats get answered first. Thank you, everybody, for supporting the channel. Like I said, buy a bag of Boom Chaga with the code. That's a great way to support us. The super chat's also a great way to support what we do here. All right, let's get to the next question. As I take a sip of this water because I'm parched already, losing my voice. Coached a soccer game yesterday and was afraid I was going to lose my voice for Talkin Ball Live postgame. Got my voice back, and now I'm starting to lose it again, ranting about the disgrace I just saw on the field here. Iconic, what's going on? Iconic's always here. A real one. Iconic says, what's up, Pat? Hate to say you were right about this team. Do you think because Daboll's offense is hard to learn, it contributes to some of Jones holding the ball too long? That's an interesting question, Iconic. That brings me back to something we heard before the season where Brandon Brown said a couple times in a press conference in the spring, unsolicited, how complicated Daboll's offense was to learn. That was something I thought was noteworthy coming from the front office. I have had conversations in there where I would say, expecting maybe somebody to throw Daboll under the bus a little bit, and they didn't. So that was interesting, right? But I do think there's been signs of like greasing the skids for, hey, maybe this coach is the problem as far as this and that. It hasn't happened recently, though, is what I'm telling you. But I do think not only is that something that could grease the skids for his departure, but also I do think it's a reality. Like we've talked to plenty of players and coaches over these recent years that while they say they believe in the offense, it is a difficult and complicated one to learn. But Iconic, I think play by play, like everything was different. So for example, to D-Kit's point, there were plays where the protection wasn't bad, but Daniel Jones held the ball for too long. Like how about the one where he got rushed, eluded a free rusher, and then instead of getting rid of the ball or throwing it away, steps up into another hit, right? Those types of plays where the line's not doing well, but the quarterback needs to understand when it's time to get rid of it, right? I personally think, I know Daniel. Like, I know him as well, I think, as most people around here do. I think Daniel so desperately wants to make big plays for the team to prove things. I think he was pressing like crazy. I think the booze got to him. I think the environment of the pressure cooker of the environment got to him. And I don't think the play calls were setting him up for any kind of huge success. I told you guys this when we were talking leading up to the season and game, and I think you saw it on the field. Iconic. The offense, in answer to your question, even though there's so much emphasis on the Giants trying to push the ball down the field, and obviously they have neighbors, Hyatt, Darius Slayton, etc. This offense is going to, and did in this game, look more like the 2022 run-based Daniel Jones run offense than you would like it to, right? Brian Daboll clearly sticking to that, going back to that, going to the well, right? Like you see those, there he had the third down in the red zone, or, a couple plays in the red zone, one design run, one where Daniel Jones was clearly encouraged to take it and tuck it and run early on when they had the ball in the short field in the 20 and they had to settle for the field goal. The two midfield, 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2 design runs. They're trying to get the running game going. I told you this before. Again, I hate being right about this stuff, but the offensive line is not good at run blocking. The offensive line is not any good at run blocking. Devin Singletary, 10 carries, 37 yards. Wow. After that, it's Daniel Jones, 6 for 15. Wan'Dale Robinson had 1 rush for 14. Eric Gray, 2 for 6. Tyrone Tracy, 2 for 2. Wan'Dale Robinson, by the way, led the Giants with 6 catches. Of course, 66 yards led them with neighbors. Wan'Dale only at 44. But how about this? Wan'Dale Robinson, 12 targets, 6 catches, 44 yards. Insane. Dave Z says, Jones is who we thought he was. A2Z Me says, wasn't expecting much, but holy shit, this organization is absolute garbage. Man, that's about as direct and fair as you can be. Biggest mistake, says Ken in Wisconsin, was letting Tyrod Taylor walk. Ain't it the truth? Tyrod Taylor was the best quarterback on this roster last year, and now he's on the Jets. Mike A says, send them some boom chaga. They need it. That's a really good point. I should walk around the locker room on Wednesday and put a little packet of boom chaga on each stool at every player's locker. Who knows? Nothing else is working. Dave Z says, I know it's one game, but Brian Burns was an absolute ghost out there today. Yes, he was. I agree. You know what? This is one thing I did not get clarity on that I need to early this week. I did not get clarity on whether Brian Burns' ankle was an issue today. He popped up on the injury report with an ankle injury on Friday after practice. He was still limited, and he didn't have a designation for the game injury-wise, but he was listed as limited for Friday's practice. I have to think that must have limited him. I hope that is what limited him in this game, because anything else is completely unacceptable. I agree. He was a complete ghost. Let's get to some of the defensive stats here from the Giants. By the way, Kayvon Thibodeau was the one who committed that really costly face mask penalty on that third down early in the second half, and Thibodeau said it was a fair call. He did commit the penalty. They attributed it to Burns at first, but it was on Thibodeau. So Brian Burns, 4 tackles, no sacks, no quarterback hits, no tackles for loss. Kayvon Thibodeau, no sacks, 1 quarterback hit, no tackles for loss. That's a number 5 overall pick and a pass rusher making almost $30 million a year. Holy crap. This is one thing I said. And listen, I like Brian Burns. Like, he's accountable. He was accountable post-game. But, this guy was on arguably the worst team in the league last year. Or actually, not arguably. He was on the worst team in the league last year. And, he could end up being on one of the worst teams in the league again this year, just making more money while he's doing it. The NYOG says, time for Mara to bring in a consultant and join him on the owner's box. You know who? Bill Belichick. Here's another thing. Steve Tisch, okay? What is Steve Tisch thinking right now? Steve Tisch is around. He's present as I've seen him in a long time. That Steve Tisch, John Mara conversation after this game tonight, man, I need to be a fly on the wall for that one. By the way, you mentioned Bill Belichick. I mean, where else do you go right now but a phone call to Bill Belichick for next season, right? Dave Z says, letting Tyrod walk pales in comparison to giving Jones a $160 million contract. How about giving him a contract like that, but giving yourself an out after 2 years, which seems like a smart way to do it if you're still trying to see more, but also putting some faith behind him. But then the quarterback understanding and knowing after he gets hurt, he rehabs, he comes back, seeing you try to replace him in the draft, you don't, then you say you believe in him, but then the general manager gets caught on a hot mic saying that we're still in the market for a quarterback. Must be nice to the Chicago Bears, who came back and beat the Tennessee Titans today after being down, I believe, 17-0. They win 24-17. Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears, they got it done there. I mean, crazy. And by the way, Caleb Williams only 93 passing yards in this game. And yet the Chicago Bears still pull it out. 21-yard return of a blocked punt, a 43-yard interception return, plus 3 field goals. What a comeback by Chicago, even though their number 1 overall pick is still learning, still growing pains, still a rookie who's not getting it done. But there's excitement in Chicago. Why? Because Ryan Poles, who was hired the same year as Joe Schoen, was able to fleece the Carolina Panthers on a trade. Poles hasn't been perfect in Chicago either, but he was able to get that number 1 overall pick, make a trade, make an acquisition to acquire assets. And also with Matt Eberflus establishing a solid defense, the GM now taking care of the promise and the hope on the offensive end, and you're hopefully off and running. Eberflus still under pressure there, still something that's incomplete. They need to provide fruit and bring it to fruition and get it to a point where it's actually functioning at a high level consistently. But the Giants, they're not even close to anything like that. They're at a point where Dexter Lawrence, their best player arguably, is going after the fans after this game saying he doesn't respect the fact that they're booing him. This is a train wreck. A2Z Me says, as a Montreal Canadiens fan and a Giants fan, today hurt a lot. Are you saying because they were wearing Montreal Canadiens jerseys, essentially? Because that's what it looked like. Ken in Wisconsin says, where is Pat? Is he trying out for quarterback? Oh, so you dropped that right before I jumped into the chat. I got you. Yeah, so Ken, I was putting together my final touches on my game story and my game column for the New York Daily News. You can find that on nydailynews.com/sports. It's going to be harsh, but it's going to be true. It's going to be fair. And to be honest, a lot of it is not just what I'm saying, but what I'm hearing and also what people affiliated with the team are telling me on and off the record. By the way, one thing I want to say before I get to the next question, and thank you everybody for the super chats rolling in. Remember, if you want your comment or question answered immediately, you need to purchase a super chat or super sticker to elevate it to the top of the chat. If you don't, I will get to your comment in due time in the queue. Don't worry. But thank you to everyone who is chipping in, and trust me, I will get to it. So the one thing I wanted to mention, I see D-Kit with another super chat in the queue. Get to that in a second. I heard that Brian Daboll, one of his messages to his players coming into this game was that 1 week does not define a season, win or lose. Okay. Now, to me, of course, you want to keep your team on an even keel. And I know that the guys from the Patriot mold, they love doing that. Like every week's a new week, all that stuff. But I can tell you from having conversations about how this went and what that was, this has a feel and came off as a feel of preparing for a loss, like preparing your team for the potential worst case scenario of losing to Minnesota and losing bad. Like you're planting a seed of doubt in your team's mind. The building, I've been told by several sources, is extremely tense. It was extremely tense coming into this game. People know, players know, jobs are on the line, guys are on the hot seat, people are on the chopping block. The players know, and the players know that it's validated in some respects, right? This has a potential for going crazily off the rails. This is all information I'm bringing you here right now, Talkin Ball Live. D-Kit says $5 super chat. Thank you so much, D-Kit. D-Kit, MVP so far today. Says, I don't want to hear from anyone that Neighbors is quarterback proof. This team's quarterback makes us winning proof, and our GM has put out an awful product. I am done. Daniel Jones, it's so frustrating too. He makes that one throw to Neighbors over the corner's hand on that 3rd and long in the second half, I believe it was. And he always has like a play here and there where you go, yeah, there it is. And then next play, step backward, disappears, right? It's so frustrating. Keith Wilson says, actually shed a tear today, not because we lost, but I don't believe the organization is capable of fixing this. And Keith, that I totally agree. And that was what I said to Daboll. I said, what reasons can you give the fans right now that this is going to turn around? He doesn't have an answer. He just said, we need to improve everything. We know we need to. But I totally agree with you. NYOG says, come today with Saquon on Friday, and Daboll and Schoen should be on notice tonight. They are on notice tonight. They are. You lose next week, this season is over. Michael says, things don't usually go that way with a GM getting fired and GM staying, though. Or a GM fired and coach sorry. You were responding to the comment earlier by Fasho, who said, keep Daboll, but fire the GM. And you're right. It doesn't work like that. It almost never works like that. Elias says, hey, Pat, any positives? Because I see none. No weather or injuries to make excuses about. Just bad quarterback play, bad receiver play, bad defense, and bad play calling. Agree with you on all counts, Elias. I think it says a lot that Daboll was asked about, are there any things that stand out to you right now that you can build on that you're excited about that, show promising signs? He's like, basically nothing I can think of right now. No, that's what the coach said. So Elias, to be honest, not being unfair when I say that, because that's what the head coach said. So there's nothing I can think of at the moment. So, talk about bleak. Holy cow. Speaking of injuries, Carter Coughlin, pectoral injury. That could be a long-term one. Was elevated from the practice squad. Key core special teamer. That's a concern. Nick McLeod started at corner. Knee injury. Hopefully not too bad, but you never know. Of course, a guy who's, cutting a lot, moving laterally. You never want to hear knee, right? In sports, you never want to hear the knee. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets. Also a loyal follower says, breaking news, Giants fan base name Lock, week 2 starter. Like I said, let's see if he's healthy enough to play. Dave Z says, Drew Lock is not good, just as bad as Jones. Steven says, what can you tell us, Pat, besides the Giants suck? Good question, Steven. By the way, to Dave Z's point, one frustrating thing during the summer was when Daniel Jones did have some off days or practices or whatever, Drew Lock wasn't grabbing it and taking it. That's what I was looking for, as among many other things covering the team in the summer, was, will Drew Lock grab this and run with it and make this a competition and a challenge? And he didn't. But then, of course, Daboll and the Giants got him hurt in the first preseason game. And so now that's a factor as well. All right, so Steven, like Elias, says, what can you tell me that's positive? Okay, one positive thing. Tyler Nubin, talked to him after the game, started at safety. He's oozing confidence right now. Feels great. I mean, they were putting him back as the single high safety at times. I asked him about how much trust that shows in him. He almost looked at me like, what do you mean? Like, he expects to be there. Like, that's what he wants, expects. It's not too big for him. He said, I can play at this level. I validated that today. He had a play where he picked up Ty Chandler, the Vikings running back, head-to-head on a hit in the second half. And I looked at him and I said, that was a nice hit there, lifting that guy off the turf. And he looked at me and he said, I told you. Because we were talking about how physical he is, how that gets him going. And so, I'm excited about that. Darius Muasau, the rookie linebacker, listen, I think you'd rather him be a backup than a starter, of course. But, better than expected for sure. 6 tackles, a tackle for a loss, an interception, and a pass defended for sure. Let's see. Drew Phillips, obviously, the rookie, forcing a fumble. Dexter Lawrence, we talked about him making plays. Bobby Okereke, only 3 tackles, interestingly enough, had a fumble recovery. But I think a lot of zone for the Giants and really the Vikings out scheming Shane Bowen with Kevin O'Connell's play calling. What else positive stood out? Jason Pinnock made a really nice play backtracking to break up a deep ball for Justin Jefferson at one point there. Let's see. Other positives that stand out that we can build on. as the Giants here. Of course, they almost started fast, right? After the offense fell on their face right away, the defense forces that turnover, and they give the Giants offense the ball at the 20-yard line. But then the offense short circuits, right? They can't get in the end zone. They kick a field goal, and it kind of shoots themselves in the foot. Really disappointing there. But, if you want to look at the silver lining there, they made some plays on defense there to set them up for a better start. The offense just didn't capitalize. Other than that, I think Andrew Thomas, left tackle, I don't think you saw a lot coming from his side, from his way. I think Andrew held up all game. I don't remember ever saying, a pressure came from Andrew's side. Like, I would imagine that on a day where Daniel Jones got sacked 5 times and hit 12 more, you're going to see an absurdly high grade, no matter, even despite that, from Andrew Thomas on Pro Football Focus. Also, Jamie Gillen, I mentioned Graham Gano earlier. Jamie Gillen, I thought, had a really good day as a punter. Put 4 inside the 20, including one that he downed at the 1-yard line. That was a really good play by the coverage team as well, with Ty Summers, Dane Belton, and Nick McLeod factoring in to pin the Vikings at the 1-yard line there. Also, Bryce Ford Wheaton, as a gunner, drew a holding penalty on punt coverage. So those are some positives to give you, Stephen. A lot of not anything you're going to hang your hat on too much, but you asked, and that's my answer there. Danny Dudd says, hey, Pat, next time you see Mara, can you ask him if he's still glad he gave Daniel Jones that contract? We all know he's the main reason Daniel Jones was drafted and re-signed. Joe Schoen was a part of it too, though. Nomad says, Dave, it doesn't matter. He can't be worse. Joey B says, I've never in my life left the game because it was that bad, and it's been worse, but this just was deflating. So bad, Joey. I know it hurts you to say that too. Danny Dudd says, Dave Brown played in a running era, yet his stats are on par with Daniel Jones. Daniel was worse. Ken says, no way, Locke is worse than this. Joey says, no one showed up or had urgency. Play calling was terrible. My kids' modified games look better than that. Also, on our 100th season opener, heads are going to roll. No doubt they are. No Mets says, Daniel Jones doesn't belong in the NFL. Kayvon, you're not good, says No Mets, and says, Burns, you went missing. But Dex played really well. All right, let's get to 2 more super chats that just popped in. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Really appreciate that. The super chats get your comment or question answered immediately and rise to the top of the queue. If you don't, I'll get to your comment or question. But I appreciate the support. Bobby Silver, thank you so much, Bobby, for the support. He says, no balance on offense. The run game was iffy at best. Should have ponied up the extra guaranteed money for Saquon and used the tag as leverage on the Jones deal years ago. Bobby, great point. I know it's only 1 week. Listen, things can change, obviously, about this dynamic, the Saquon decision and all that. But it's hard to watch these first 2 games and not feel like the Giants royally screwed themselves here with how they played it out. And knowing that John Mara did not want it to go this way, knowing that John Mara did not want to see Saquon, the face of his franchise, gone to another team, knowing that he didn't want to see him go on to a division rival, knowing that Joe Schoen said he thought the Eagles were out of it at one point. And yet, he was not out of it. They were not out of it. Harry Roseman was not out of it. In fact, he was the biggest bidder. Wow. Just wow. Am I right? I mean, just completely unacceptable. JCNYC, thank you, JC, says, Pat, Wink would have eaten Darnold for lunch. Prefer his defense after the game. And watching Darnold pick us apart, Daniel Jones was under a lot of pressure. Great point there, JC. You could point, if the Giants with Wink Martindale as defensive coordinator played a quarterback like Sam Darnold, he would give them a schematic leg up and an advantage, a built-in schematic coaching advantage. And they did not have one on either side of the ball today. You saw today what happens when Brian Daboll does not have a defensive coordinator giving him a schematic advantage on the other side of the ball. Totally unacceptable. All right, let's see. On to the next question. Thank you, JC, so much for that. Dave Z says, who are your top 3 disappointments today, Pat? My list is Burns, Jones, Daboll. I expect Jones to shit the bed, but Burns was non-existent except for one pressure. The pick 6 play was ghastly. Yeah, I think it's Daboll, Bowen, and Jones. That's what I think. Daboll, Bowen, and Jones. in any order you want. Those three. But, I throw Burns under the Bowen umbrella. Steven says, you would think after Dave Brown, when Gettleman came to Mars and said, I'm thinking of drafting this quarterback. Oh, came to Mara, sorry. When Gettleman came to Mara and said, I'm thinking of drafting this QB, Mara would say, no, we are not. He reminded them of Eli Manning, but more mobile. Michael says, well, Pat, same crap, different year. The offense is still predictable. Yes, it is. Still predictable. Tim Houston says, this will probably be the most active live for Talkin Ball. Can't wait. Pat is going to be overwhelmed with our input, questions, and insights. Should be entertaining. And Tim, it looks like it has been so far. We're 50 minutes in, and I feel like we started 5 minutes ago because of how lively this is. Another super chat in the queue. Let me check down here and see who it's from. It's from Novice of Things. Again, Novice, thank you so much for your support here today. Really appreciate you. He says, drove in from Maryland for the Fan Fest on Friday. Got me psyched. Seemed like the stadium vibe today was the same as at home. Disbelief. What was your take? It was disbelief, Novice, and it was also, let's put it this way. This was not your typical week one. This was, week one is usually, even for people who are worried or concerned or feel like we need to make progress, even if you lose in one game, usually you're thinking to yourself as even a fan who's pessimistic, it's only 1 week, it's only one game. And like I talked to the tight end Chris Manhertz, who was obviously knew it wasn't good enough, but he said, listen, I'm not going to overreact to one game. It's one game. Like, we got to bounce back next week, right? So that's how a veteran takes it. That's what he'll be saying to his teammates. That's hopefully a message that gets through to some of the younger guys in the locker room. But the fans, Novice, in the stadium, the atmosphere here was one of, here we go again, almost like it was picking right up where they left off from last season, picking right up where they left off on how pathetic, how dysfunctional, how bad is our decision-making as an organization. Hard Knocks kind of bridged the gap between last season and this season of everybody being really plugged in to the internal dynamic of how it works and why they're doing what they're doing, right? And Novice, I'm telling you, when the fans got restless when Devin Singletary caught a pass for -6 yards on the first drive. And then there was a delay, a delay of game penalty. The Giants punt. By the time Daniel Jones throws that pick six, fans were, first they had a drive where they had 3 penalties in 4 plays. They had too many men on the field, 12 men in the huddle. Then they had a Jermaine Illuminor false start at right tackle. Bad game for him. Then they had a Wan'Dale Robinson hold, right? The fans were getting restless. You could hear the boos. When Daniel Jones threw that pick six, not only big boos, people leaving the game at that point. I was texting with a season ticket holder who said then that he and the people that he was with, they waited it out. But then when Daniel Jones threw that pick six to Harrison Smith in the end zone, that's when he left. That's when they left. And honestly, these are people like Joey B said, who can never see themselves leaving games early. They don't leave games early. Even when it's bad, they don't leave games early. They left today early because it was here we go again. After the second interception, the stadium essentially emptied. In the second half, they were doing Skol chants, Skol, the Vikings fans. It was embarrassing. It was disgusting. This was, let's celebrate our 100 years. Like I said, at halftime, the boos were so loud, and the Giants, as the team is getting booed off the field, the Giants organization is walking out onto the field with a 100 seasons banner. And Bill Parcells, Tom Coughlin, Justin Tuck, Eli Manning, Lawrence Taylor, Phil Simms, Amani Toomer, you name it, Harry Carson, Leonard Marshall, all out on the field being honored as the fans are booing the players on the current team because it's not good enough. The fans did have something to cheer about as those legends were announced and honored properly at halftime. The Giants did a good job with that ceremony. But then it was right back to the misery. It was the Kayvon Thibodeau penalty. It was Cordell Flott's eyes in the wrong place, getting roasted on a touchdown to Jalen Naylor. It was Brian Daboll's offense being inept. It was his quarterback making bad decisions. And it went right back to the boos and to people getting in their cars early because no one wanted to watch any more of this. And it was very clear, Novice, thank you again for supporting us with that super chat. It was very clear that the fans, above all, We're tired of seeing Daniel Jones. They do not want to see him at quarterback. The fans just don't. And I'm not even talking about me right now. The fans don't want to see Daniel Jones at quarterback from what I could see at the stadium today. The season ticket holders, the PSL payers, they don't want to see Daniel Jones at quarterback. Guys, I want to remind you again, and we'll get right to your questions again. Remember, Super Chats, get your comment or question answered immediately. Also, thank you for everyone who's already supported us here. Also, if you want to support our channel in other ways, you can support us by buying a bag here, right here, Boom Chaga. The code is TalkinBall25. There's the QR code. Talking Ball with Pat Leonard is brought to you by the Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants, and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks, water, coffee, whatever. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally feel a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. That is boomchaga.com. And place your first order. Use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code right here on your screen, and you'll get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. So that's boomchaga.com. Subscribe and save option, not this single purchase option. Subscribe and save. Use TalkinBall25. Buy a bag, and then you can just cancel the subscription. It won't wrap you in. It won't force you to be committed. But that's just a way to get a huge discount on a bag of Boom Chaga, which I really do think you guys will love. And I also think, as somebody suggested earlier, maybe it's smart for me to get the Giants players in on it because we need a boost in that Giants locker room. Also brought to you by Estate 98 Coffee. Go to estate98.com/talkinball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. I'm posting both links down here in the chat so you guys can see it in the chat and you can access those there if you wish. All right, on to more questions here on Talkin' Ball Live with Pat Leonard. I'm the NFL columnist and Giants beat writer for the New York Daily News. Here on the Believe Network, we do post-game lives every Giants game from the press box. I'm sitting in MetLife Stadium, staring at the empty turf, looking at the field that I just watched the Giants lay a huge egg on against the Minnesota Vikings, setting a bad tone for the 2024 NFL season. All right. Let's see. Elias says this cannot be Brian Burns' production all year with what we are paying him, no doubt. No Met says Kafka looked better calling plays. Yes, early, but come on. He did. I agree. Ken wants to know if Kafka can still play quarterback. Not a bad question. How about Eli? Can Eli still play? Dave Z says everyone in the stadium and watching at home knew where the ball was going on that pick six. Yes, and that's not just the quarterback. To me, that was the scheme. That was the defense. That was Van Ginkel being prepared for that. Michael says, yeah, it's obvious now, Steven. I was so hoping Justin Herbert would leave Oregon and Giants had that chance to get him, but he stayed for senior year. They loved him. Michael, I wrote a column at the time, the year after they drafted Daniel Jones. They should just draft Justin Herbert anyway if they had a conviction on him. Obviously, easier said than done. You're putting your neck on the line when you do that. But there is precedent. I mean, the Cardinals eventually did the Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray thing. You can do it. Obviously, did not though. D Kid says dumpster fire. Jeff says Big Pat, talk us through it, brother. Patrick says pathetic performance. Dave Z says, I bet Dave Gettleman is in full bloom love with Jones. What a joke. Iconic says, do you think that's because Mara knows it's his fault that Jones is here? I think John's a part of it, obviously. He's a part of the reason why the franchise has been in such dysfunction for so long here. But he has been trying, at least recently, to the best of from what I can tell, John Mara and ownership has really been sensitive to the notion and the reality that ownership was and has meddled and is meddling in the operations of this team. So, look at Saquon Barkley. Yes, you could see that why, maybe a general manager feels, let's say, pressure to do something they don't want to do, even if John Mara doesn't overtly say you're not doing that, right? But what did we see at Hard Knocks? John Mara ultimately let it happen. The player he didn't want to see leave, the face of the franchise he didn't want to lose, He let his general manager let him walk out the door. And he walked out the door right to their rivals. Let me tell you this. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Joe Schoen will not keep his job if Saquon Barkley continues to flourish and the Giants continue to look like this. No Met says there better be a quarterback change. Corey says, imagine getting your ass handed to you by Sam effing Darnold. Embarrassing. No Met says O-line didn't seem that bad. I disagree, No Mets. I think that it was leaky on the right side. I think that there were plays to be made at times by Daniel Jones for sure. And like we said earlier, not all on the O-line. But I don't think it was good enough at all. And I do think the leaks mostly seem to come from the right side, though there was like a stunt, for example, that got John Runyon Jr., where Daniel Jones got blasted there too. A2Z Me says it's still find it hard to believe that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll wanted Daniel Jones back. Iconic says Jones was holding the ball too long. Intel says Daniel Jones is trash. No Met says Dex is a little delusional with that comment, saying that he doesn't respect the fans booing. I totally agree. Notorious says DJ can't read the field. You're not wrong, Notorious. I've said this before. I'll tell you guys again. There are more quarterbacks in the NFL who don't see the field as well as you think they can. Like, really. I mean, Jalen Hurts, look at some of the decisions he's making. Doesn't see it as well as you would think. Dak Prescott, even, a guy whose numbers are really big the last few years, who was productive, was in the NBA. He was the runner-up to the MVP award last year. And there's a guy who doesn't see the field as well as you would think. But I agree on the Daniel Jones thing. I think for him, it has to, like, if his first read or the play design is drawn up well and it's there, then it's going to happen. If it's not there and he starts hesitating, moving, rethinking, watching and moving and trying to improvise, it starts to get dangerous, and that's where big mistakes happen. Then again, the pick six was what? Throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage, which apparently is one of Brian Daboll's favorite pastimes. I mean, they threw the ball behind the scrimmage an absurd amount today. Of course, like I said, 2022 offense. No Met says Theo Johnson looks like a bad pick. Yes, it's early, but still. You need better from Theo for sure. Rookie, but you need better. Intel says, Pat, remember what I said. Therapy session. No doubt. Looks like we got another super chat in the queue. I'll get down to this one, and then I'll come back into the queue. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate all the support here. All right, it's Big Z checking in with $5. Big Z, thank you so much for the support. Really appreciate the super chat. And guys, remember, if you don't want to purchase a super chat or a super sticker, please hit the like button while we are here. That thumbs up, that like button you press while we are live especially, does a lot to tell Giants fans out there, or NFL fans even, who don't know that we're live, that this community is here, that it's growing. We're over 3,000 subscribers now and continuing to move upwards and onwards here at Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard, PL on NFL on YouTube, on the Believe Network, on audio, we're Apple, Spotify, and with the New York Daily News, of course. You can get news and updates and information, breaking news from me on YouTube Shorts. We have player interviews, coach interviews. You can watch full interviews on the page, on the channel. Also, podcasts with special guests. We've had Barry Sanders on, Adam Schefter, Bobby Okereke, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard. Let's see, who's been on recently? Sal Palantonio, Gary Myers, Ian O'Connor, Michael Lombardi, Trevor Sycamore on the NFL draft. You name it. Like, we're eyeing Super Bowl Radio Row, Media Row this year in New Orleans. It's coming. We're going to be there, whether the Giants are there or not. And looking forward to continue to grow this and give you top information and insight that you're looking for on the Giants and on the league. Again, year 9 covering the NFL. All right. Let's see. Thank you again for that super chat, Bigsy. Okay. A-Tone says, how long of a leash until Daniel Jones gets benched? A-Tone, that's a really good question. Something that I'm working the phones on now is trying to figure out exactly how patient will they be, because the fan base is done with it, right? We saw that in the stadium. That was a great question about what the stadium was like, too, that helpful to help me paint the picture of it. I wonder, like, if Drew Lock, he has that oblique injury, are they going to wait until he's fully healthy? Will he be healthy enough in week 2 to go to him? To me, like, I thought there was even merit in this game just to take Daniel out, give him a breather, show the fans something else. I think maybe if Daboll didn't do it, the reason might be that Locke physically is still not there. right? And he wasn't getting the reps. Like, that's the thing. In practice, he wasn't getting the reps. I think if we find out what the reps look like in practice this week, this will go a long way to tell us where it's going. So, A-Tone, my answer to that actually would first be, I think Brian Daboll's plan on the reps in practice needs to change first, right? Like, and then that's how we'll know something could be coming. Dave Z says, hit that like button and grab some Estate 98 or Boom Chaga. Tried the Estate 98, and it was pretty damn good. Love it for iced coffee. Dave, thanks for saying that. Yeah, so Dave won our stat giveaway where we ask a trivia question, and then the winner wins a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee. We haven't done it yet today, but it is coming. So stay tuned. Whoever gets the question correct first will win a bottle of Estate 98 coffee. So I'll get a question going for you guys shortly. And so, when I ask you the question, you guys will just punch it into the comment section when you have the answer. And the second it comes up, the second you see it, the second you hear that question, the first person in the queue who has the correct answer will win a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee. Have to queue up a good one for you guys, though, because there's a lot tossed around. And also, I've dished a lot of information on this game already. So I need to get to the bottom of it. All right. Let's see. Mara needs to make me the GM because I will bench Daniel Jones ASAP, says Intel. Looks like we got another super chat coming in here. Bigsy, what's up? Thank you so much, Bigsy. Bigsy says, Pat, we looked awful today. Any bright spots? I think Neighbors had a decent game, and Dex, thanks again as always. You got it, Bigsy. We talked a little bit earlier about some bright spots, Bigsy. We talked about Tyler Nubin showing some things. Really, some of the rookies, right? Drew Phillips, forced fumble. Darius Muasau, interception. And not looking like completely overwhelmed by, playing in an NFL game, even though he's a late-round pick. Let's see. What else did we mention? Jamie Gillen, the punter, had a good game. Graham Gano had a good game. All right, here's a question. The trivia question for today is: we'll round the number to an exact number. Okay, there'll be a decimal point in it, but we'll round it to the nearest whole number. Okay. What was Sam Darnold's completion percentage against Shane Bowen's defense in this game? That's your trivia question. Put the answer in the comment question now. First answer gets a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee. What was Sam Darnold's completion percentage in this game? You have to guess the whole number. No, so the whole number. So a whole number would be like 51, 59, 63. You have to get the whole number. Looks like somebody is in. Is that Michael? Looks like Michael answered it correctly first. Have to double check here. Hold on. All right, so the correct answer is 79%. Michael Lanos with the correct answer. Michael, 79%. 79.2 to be exact. 19 of 24 for 208 yards and 2 touchdowns and an interception for Sam Darnold. 113.2 quarterback rating. And wow, 79%, 79.2. Michael, here's how we're going to do this. I'm same handle on Instagram, PL on NFL, okay? Send me a DM on Instagram. My DMs are open there. Send me a DM on Instagram, PL on NFL. Send me your address or a P.O. box or wherever, and I will have Estate 98 mail you a free bottle of this delicious coffee that helps make a iced coffee in 10 seconds that Dave Z said is really good. Makes a really good hot coffee, but iced, honestly, is what it's best for, to be honest. It's so good. It's even really good for mixers. Like if you're an espresso martini person, this is kind of like your coffee for the espresso martini. Like there's so many uses. If you just use it for drinking coffee, it's about a half a month's worth of coffee. But Michael, way to go there. I love how some people guessed like into the 90s too with that. Michael, great job. Nice work. 79%. Holy cow. Yeah, you're going to try it. You will love it. But yeah, Bigsy, thanks for that. Thanks for that question about the bright spots. I think, the bright spot, the other bright spot I said, Bigsy, was I think that the fact that the defense, after the offense started so poorly, the fact that the defense still just came out, they didn't say, here we go again. They came out, forced a turnover, and gave the offense a short field. Of course, then the offense only scores a field goal, and then the defense on its heels again doesn't get it done as well. But like a bright spot would be, hey, despite the offense looking like crap right off the bat, the defense kind of still initially was ready to play, right? All right. Stevie Johnson says, I think it's the Stephon Gilmore curse. Last year, 40-0. He's with the Cowboys. This year's opener, 28-6 with the Vikings. Really good player. Really good player. By the way, 2 players who did not get used hardly at all in this game. Jalen Hyatt at wide receiver and Isaiah Simmons on defense. Guys who were healthy and available and, for the most part, did not play. Joey B said, how many more losses do you think before the firings start happening? If you lose next week and it's embarrassing, Joey, it could be happening as soon as week 2, in my opinion. V-Jack, this is early on, even right when we went live, he said there are 97 viewers. That should equal 7 likes for Big Pat. Some love. V-Jack, thanks for saying that. And now we've been at 300, 325. We're at 285 right now. We are sizzling here on Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard live here post-game from MetLife Stadium. Thank you, guys. You are what makes this show. You're what drives this show, what drives this podcast and this content. I really appreciate it. If you're new to what we do here, I do Talkin Ball live on Mondays and Thursdays. So Mondays is 9 p.m. Thursdays, we start at halftime of the Thursday night game, and then I watch the second half with you while we talk Giants. And then every Giants game, I do a post-game live from the stadium in the press box, home and away. So I'll do it in Washington on the road from their press box, and then I'll be in Cleveland on the road in the press box. Then I'll be home for the Dallas Cowboys game on a Thursday night in the press box, and on we go. So it's Mondays at 9 p.m., Thursdays at halftime of Thursday Night Football, whoever's playing, and then post-game live for every Giants game here on the YouTube channel, PL on NFL. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Please hit the like button while we are live. I can't tell you how much that does for just showing YouTube and showing Giants fans out there, hey, this is here for you. That works on the algorithm. It just does. So thank you so much. Thanks for everybody who is like VJack, who is saying that they love the content we're producing here. And thanks for helping us create this content. Thanks for helping me because honestly, I've said this to you guys before. I probably haven't said it in a little while. I love doing this. I love talking to you guys on here. I like writing. I like reporting. I like forming relationships. I like everything I do. I love everything I do about this job. I'm grateful to the Daily News, to the Believe Network, to everybody who believes in me and supports me and has along the way. But, man, I love doing these Talkin Ball live chats, and I love interacting with you guys, this community. And it's not, we don't always agree on what we're talking about. We have plenty of disagreements. Sometimes people weigh in with things that they don't feel is accurate. Like, for example, early on, talking to D-Kit and some people about how much blame on the line, how much blame on Daniel Jones, right? Things like that, and kind of debating that and batting it back and forth. It's so constructive, our conversation. I think a lot of the people who come in here are diehard fans. They're people who see the game. Like you guys see the game so well. Like the observations that I see, even just in today's and tonight's super chats and in our comments and our conversation. Like I say this all the time as well, but I think it's really true. I'm here to teach you guys and show you what you can learn from me because I'm plugged into the organization, but I'm learning just as much from you. I'm learning just as much from you on finger of the pulse of the fans. You guys often end up pointing things out that maybe I didn't see, or clarifies something that I thought I saw, or it reinforces something that I did see or that I did know, or it strengthens my belief in something that I had a hunch about, or whatever it is. But you guys really provide such an important and valuable perspective. And I love being face-to-face too. I love it. And we'll keep doing the creator series like the one I did with Authentic. We'll have another creator on hopefully soon. Probably not this coming week, but maybe after week 2, going into week 3. As early as that, probably try to get another one going. Let's see. Intel says Daboll's going to get fired if he keeps Daniel Jones out there. And it might not matter because honestly, no quarterback was better than Daniel Jones. Evan says, if this is what the season is going to look like, Schoen and Daboll can say their goodbyes now. That's right. Matthew says, looks like Flores wanted a little payback after the Belichick text fiasco. knowing the Giants had hired Daboll before the Giants interviewed him. By the way, Matthew, thanks for bringing that up. Guys, when you have a chance, go back and read my story for Saturday's Daily News about Brian Flores and the Giants, because I made some phone calls and did some reporting on where that all stands. That case is still in court. It's still in the Court of Appeals. If everything gets upheld in the Court of Appeals, Brian Flores is still going to court and taking on the NFL, the Giants, the Texans. That's all there. So Brian Flores was coaching in this game with all of that fresh in mind, top of mind, that kind of axe to grind, what he's trying to prove as a coach, what he's trying to do to change the way that the hiring processes allegedly went incorrectly and unfairly in what he was involved in. So that was a big part of it, and that's still ongoing. So I think you get a lot out of reading my coverage in the Daily News on where that all stands. A2Z says Schoen looked even worse than Jones, in my opinion. Dude is making the team worse if that's even possible. Yeah, listen, it's hard to look at all these premier like investments at draft picks and say, like, look at it. I mean, not enough guys are turning into good players. I mean, it's as obvious as I can say it. That doesn't make me an expert to say that. You're saying it, A2Z. You're right. Big Blue Steph Forever says, hey, Pat, thanks for this. You got it. Thank you so much, Steph, for being here. Really appreciate it. I'm a fan says year 6 and Daniel Jones still looks lost. No improvement. Still throwing picks. They have to draft a quarterback. Candyman says, so disgusting. I've been a fan since 1966. Terrible run till 1981. This might be worse. Ooh. Comments like that are what get to John Mara and to Steve Tisch. By the way, John Mara and Steve Tisch, what they respond most to is the fan outrage. So it's the boos, it's people leaving the stadium, and it's saying comments like that, Candyman, to me on here to get read out loud, or to write emails to the Giants and to John Mara and Steve Tisch and to write stuff like that to them. That's what gets to them the most. That's what resonates to them the most. Wellington Mara, John's late father, was very attuned to the fans, believed strongly that the fans would tell you when things were not right. And this lack of patience from the fan base in week 1 is really something else to see. And I think it reinforces, listen, how about the context of the fact that Daboll's mismanagement of his staff and sideline last year led to an exodus of his coaching staff? And now on the heels of that, he scores 6 points as a play caller, and his team's in total dysfunction the first game back with his new staff. Holy cow. Let's see. I skipped some there. Joey B says, I would trade for Jameis Winston right now. Interesting. Yeah, listen, the signing of Dory Jackson was a desperate move, so could be desperate quarterback move on deck. Is Ryan Tannehill on deck, right? Mr. Danke says Daniel Jones can't start next week. Mr. Danke, I think you're one of many people who feel that way. No Mets wants to know what GM and coach would be willing to come here. Well, people who want jobs and want to make, let's say, 5 years, $25 million and get paid that no matter whether you get fired after 2 years or not, right? People like that. But I think you're saying what GM and coach of substance, right? That's why Bill Belichick has to be – you got to open the checkbook and see if he'll do it. Justin says, Pat, once again, the team and coaching staff was unprepared to play week 1, a 12-man and delay of game penalty in the first quarter alone. At what point is the coaching staff held accountable? I mean, listen, there were people heading for the hills after last year, right? People want to debate about what happened, this and that. Coaches were heading for the hills. Mike Kafka wanted to leave. He just wasn't able to leave. They prevented him from leaving. Everybody was out the door. It was a disaster. It was toxic. It was dysfunctional. Everybody knows. And like I said, very uptight going into this game, the whole organization. And you saw it on the field. Candyman says, keep up the honest reporting. Yeah, and listen, like I said, and I know some people don't believe this, I do not enjoy being right when I tell you, hey, this team's going to win 4 games and the season might be over before it starts. If you looked at my preview for this game, it's talking about Ivan Pace saying the Giants are going to be no problem. Joe Schoen kind of throwing shade at Daniel Jones on a hot mic. Saquon Barkley scoring 3 touchdowns. John Mara's face being planted all over social media. Must win for the Giants in week 1. I'm not saying that because I'm trying to put pressure on that's not there. I'm saying that because I know the pressure is there and I know that that's the reality. So, listen, I've said this before. I'll say it again. It's bad for business when a team is not winning, especially year after year after year. It stinks. It stinks. But that's where we're at. All right, let's keep going here. Mr. Danky says every pass straight to the dirt. Yeah, a lot of underthrows, man. Bouncing passes. Five drop passes, though. 5 drop balls. Ashley says Daboll play selection was terrible. Worse than Kafka, and that says a lot. No imagination whatsoever. G-Men will be lucky to win 4 games this year. Yes, they will. I think, you know what's interesting, Ashley? A lot of people, I think, today have said what you just said about Daboll. They think the play calling was horrendous. Matthew says, did Kayvon Thibodeau get benched? So a lot of Ojulari in the second half. You know, Matthew, I have to go back and look at that because he was off the field at times in the second half. Kayvon was. He did play less. I asked him about it. He said, yeah, well, you know, at that point, the game was kind of out of hand. So, you know, not necessary to keep up the same, in his mind, you know, rotation. Although that's, you know, that can't be the reason that he wasn't in the game, right? You're still trying to play well, and he's your number 5 overall pick. You're not just like pulling him off the field, right? Azeez Ojulari did play more in the second half. I'm very interested, Matthew, to get to the bottom of that. Because I did ask Kayvon, I was like, how much did you play in the second? I was trying to gauge it exactly because there were a lot of plays I saw him off the field. And he was off the field for at times, but he said that he didn't come off permanently. So to be honest, I have to be honest, guys, those uniforms obviously are heinous. But also, like, there were times where my normal, like, oh, yeah, I'm tracking who's on the field. There were times where my eyes were working against me because it was hard to see the numbers on their uniform. Like, it was hard for me to pinpoint sometimes, you know, who was who at a split second at times at certain positions. Notorious says all of Daniel Jones' throws were offline or short. I think he's done. A2Z says if Daboll starts Jones next week, he's letting the team and the fan base know he doesn't really care. Kayvon being cocky post-game after having done nothing all game, says Mr. Danky. Terrible performance by the team today, says Evan. They were all bad. Yep. I wonder what positives Carl Banks saw this week. Says A2Z. Yeah, tough to put lipstick on a pig, as they say. Barb says the team was not prepared. Looked like preseason game 1. That's on coaching. So 2 straight seasons now that the team has been unprepared for their first game of the season. Simeon thinks that barring injury, Jones is going to play next week. Barb says the Browns booing Deshaun. At least we don't have that contract. Good perspective there, Barb. Betch says, man, this was a team effort. No doubt. No doubt. All the way down, Betch. Simeon says when Wandale went into motion behind the receivers, who didn't know what was coming on the pick 6? Exactly, Simeon. Easy to diagnose, easy play to read. Betch says Daboll running obvious plays, double tight to one side, 2 routes to the other. Strider says, hey, Pat. Hey, Strider, good to see you, man. Says, hey, Pat, I can say this was a terrible first game for the Giants. Daniel Jones was terrible, questionable play calling. Defense was not good despite a sack, a fumble recovery, and a pick. I guarantee you Daboll makes no changes next week. Jones starts, etc., says Theodore. Omega says, was Dexter holding back when asked about how he felt about the fans were booing? I mean, he didn't hold back. I mean, he said, I don't respect it. So that's not holding back. So maybe he had more to say, Omega. I think once he said that, I think he realized I'm not going to continue on this. But he definitely let know what he felt about it. And like I said, for him, I don't know necessarily if he's saying he doesn't understand fans booing. I think what he's probably responding to is how hard they're booing so early, you know, which really does say a lot for sure. But, like, let's be honest. Everybody can understand why, right? Everybody can understand. All right. But I don't think Dexter did the right thing going there. Daniel Jones is a serious problem, says Collusion, but even more so, Daboll keeping him after the first half was criminal. Jones was lost out there and had no business being on the field. Nothing positive after this one. Yeah, you know what, Collusion? I really agree that, you know, it would have, I think, been the right thing to go to Drew Lock at some point in this game as you saw it devolving, as you saw how the fan base was responding to Jones, as you saw how he was responding to the boos. But like I said, I think Drew Lock being limited all week with his oblique, even though he wasn't on the injury report, I think that had to have played a factor here. Betch says, Pat, you need to tell Daboll and Jones straight up. This could be your last chance in the position that you're in. Hey, I tell it like it is, Betch. If anything else, I tell it like it is, for sure. With you. Strider says Dexter, he thinks, did hold back. Sometimes you got to think what you're about to say. Well, he said, I don't respect it. So that's not holding back. I mean, he said what was on his mind there. But yeah, he didn't go anywhere after that. Kyler says 2023 week 1 versus 2024 week 1. Which one is worse? Also, did we see the last of Jones with that injury clause? Good work, Pat. Driving trucks is more fun with Talkin Ball. Kyler, thanks for checking in and listening as you're on the road. I'm glad I'm giving you some Giants therapy, some NFL information, and I'm really appreciative that you're checking in and participating and supporting the channel by asking this question. Thank you so much for doing that. Where are you driving right now? Are you cross country? Are you on the East Coast? That's really interesting, and I'm glad. It's cool to hear how different people are enjoying it. I know Joey B and Gabe, and now you, like a lot of people have said too, like if they're traveling far and wide for the Giants games, this can be like a good kind of unwind from the Giants action that you saw in person at the game. A good kind of summary, a way to understand what was happening in the locker room, what was coming out of that, what the guys were saying. So to answer your question about which one was worse and whether we saw the last of Jones, Kyler, let me go to the second one first, the Jones question. I don't know if we saw the last of Jones, though I do think if they're not thinking about, like Gabe said, hey, we got to trade for Jameis Winston, or, we all know Ryan Tannehill's still out there. If they're not looking at a way to bring a new quarterback onto this roster, then they are, they are completely lost. I wouldn't be surprised because they are completely lost. But I would say they have to at least be looking for somebody to bring in here to instill some kind of hope in what they're doing here. But have we seen the last of him? Maybe not. I mean, I asked Daboll that. He said it's not in his mind to bench him for next week at the moment. So that's what the coach said. And which one was worse? So, Joe Schoen at least found a way last year to say, like, oh, we had all these injuries in week 1, right? Last year was like completely unprepared to play as a team, right? And plus Daniel Jones was bad. The O-line was bad, non-functional. I thought this was just as bad in a different way, though, because I thought what I saw today was the defense doesn't have a lot of answers, okay? I saw, and that's a new coordinator with a new system, and we know a less experienced coordinator, a less accomplished coordinator. I also thought, given they had a full offseason to repair things, and this is what it looks like, how bad it was. I mean, listen, they had 6 points, 3 because they got a short field starting at the 20. So last year was 40-0. Today was, could have easily been 28-3, right? Instead of 28-6. They didn't score a touchdown. So to me, Kyler, I think, especially because it's 1 year later, and listen, last year, Daboll didn't lose the locker room. This year, the players have a look in their eyes of like this. Like this, I'm telling you, like Deonte Banks today, talking to him after the game, he's looking like this. Does that make sense? And if you can't see me, you can watch this later. We're at the hour 28 mark if you want to see my face. But it's like that glassy look in the distance. Here we go again, questions. Knowing there's a lot of things they can't say, but saying some things because they're a little bit disgusted and tired of not saying anything. I'm telling you, this will come apart quick. Like this is coming apart at the seams if they don't stop it. Collusion says, what is going on with this organization? No matter what they do, nothing is ever right. Over a decade of just some of the worst football in the NFL. Disgusting. Right now, in my mind, they have poor leadership. That's what I think their problem is right now. And they're not drafting well. Simeon says they had no fight left. That's what I saw late in the second half, it looked like. Simeon says, I don't want to say they gave up, but yep, I'm with you. Dean says, how bad are we? Daboll is going to be sacked this year. Yes, he is. Strider says, Pat, if Daniel Jones continues to struggle, Daboll must take him out and try Locke. Yes, Locke isn't that great. If Daniel's feelings get hurt, then too bad. Take him out and try something else. No, Met says, not quite the start as last year. This was actually worse. Strider points out, too, Pat, Kayvon, no tackles, no sacks. I think he had, what did I say he had? Kayvon had, no tackles, no sacks, 1 quarterback hit. Wow. He did something like this versus the Eagles last year in Philly. Kayvon has a history, even when he has made plays in years, he has a history of disappearing in games so far early in his career. Dave Z says, just made an Estate 98 iced coffee to wash away the misery of today. Thanks again, Pat. Got to add some Jameson, though. Dave, great to hear. NY315 says, DJ should already be benched. What a joke this GM and coach are. Awful decision makers led us down the wrong path continually. Tear it down and sell the team, says Mr. Jackpots. Those are the kind of comments that get to John Mara and Steve Tisch. Theodore says, what did you have to say to Thibodeau? Interesting. Well, I asked him what went on in the second half, and he basically said that was a penalty on the face mask. He said he did come out of the game a little bit, but not as much as I thought he did. But he said, the game was kind of out of hand at that point. His general thoughts after the game, basically, like, the Giants feel like, listen, let's get back to the drawing board. We know we can do better. It wasn't good enough, like those kind of things. But, Kayvon and the Giants, I think Kayvon's a good example of a Giant player who I will tell you this, Theodore. One person did mention to me that they said, listen, our pass rush got there sometimes. Burns got there sometimes. Dex got there sometimes, then kind of trailed off. So that tells you. Joey B says the drone show on Friday was sick. Yeah, it looked like it, especially the Phil Simms with the arms in the air. That was cool. No Met says Mara isn't selling the team. Super Unknown says, Pat, this is just awful. Ryan says, if I'm Steve Tisch, I bring a president to run the team and tell John Mara to retire. Someone else needs to run the organization. We could be at that point as far as how they stack up. Simeon says, yep, clean sheet of paper. NY says, he should, though. This team is an abysmal embarrassment mess. Dave Z says, Mara can be mad all he wants as he cashes that shared revenue check from the TV deals. NYOG says, Pat, let us know when you see Bill Belichick in the owner's box. It's time. Big Dog says, in my eyes, Joe has to go, and Mara needs to never hire a guy named Joe ever again. I'll go to my grave saying that Joe Judge got screwed and was a good CEO coach. He just needed an offensive coordinator. Kevin says the Giants should have given Coughlin Daboll's headset at halftime. I am a season ticket holder who has no plans of sitting through this garbage again this season. Wow. There's Kevin Eschbacher saying he's a season ticket holder who has no plans of sitting through this garbage again this season. Wow. Like I said, these are the comments that get to John Mara and Steve Tisch and the ownership. These are the comments that resonate. If you want change with the Giants organization, these are the comments that they hear loud and clear. Big Dog says, at this point, this regime doesn't deserve to draft a quarterback. I agree. Dean says, no quarterback can play behind this O-line. Awful. Alex says, sorry about that. He says, I will never be embarrassed to be a Giants fan, but I took off my jersey before going food shopping. Wow. That is insane. And by insane, I don't mean you're insane for doing that. I mean, I'm just in awe, or like my jaw's on the floor about, like, I knew it was bad, but this is what I mean about me learning from you guys. It reinforces how bad it is when you say something like that. It reinforces to me, to ownership, to the team, just how bad it is when you say something like that. No Met says DJ fleeced the Giants for over $100 million, rookie salary included. Wow, guys, I'll tell you what. I might write an extra story for the Daily News with some of your comments in the story as like a fan reaction. As long as you guys are all okay with that, I'm sure you are. But some of these comments that is coming from you guys about like how embarrassed you are and how bad it is, I think this really resonates about how bad it is. So as long as you're cool with that, I'm sure you are. But like guys like Kevin, Alex, and others have said stuff like that. But I think this kind of fan reaction really deserves to be heard. And it's being heard here on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard, but also deserves to be heard in print, I believe. Because it's one thing to be frustrated with the team. It's another thing to say that you're going to stop coming to the games and that you don't want to wear their jersey. That's serious stuff. No Mets says DJ fleeced the Giants for over $100 million, rookie salary included. Strider says the quarterback situation reminds me of the quarterbacks in the 90s once Phil Simms retired. The only thing that holds the team back is the QB. It was not just the QB, though, today, even though he was bad. Vish says, Pat, I can't stand this team. Big Dog says Jones had more time in the pocket than ever. He did, but there were free runners. There was pressure. I mean, he got hit 12 times and sacked 5, Big Dog. So that's 17 hits on pass plays. So, like me, Big Dog. Oh, one of the sacks was on a running play. So that's what? 16 hits on quarterback plays or on passing plays. But Big Dog, like that's, you're absolutely right that the O-line today was better than it was in week 1 last year against Dallas or whatever. But to me, it was way worse than I think it needs to be, and it was not fixed by any means. And I think that he was under a lot of pressure. I thought Neighbors' comment was the best one, where he said, Daniel said he was trying to get me the ball. He had a lot of pressure in his face. Jones is not turning into Peyton Manning in a week, says Simeon. Strider says Daboll calling that quarterback draw on 3rd down was a strange call. Yeah, listen, everybody gets on Joe Judge for that call at the goal line, and obviously that was a horrendous call and embarrassing for the Giants organization. How about Brian Daboll's 2 quarterback runs there and punting at midfield on 3rd and 3? Or on 4th and 3. Jeez, embarrassing stuff. Whole team looked totally unprepared, says Lando. Did they know they were playing? Did they even know they were playing a game? I know. Terrible. Simeon says Jones threw behind people over their heads and into the dirt when he had time. A2Z says Jones left a clean pocket to run into a sack twice today. Was it twice? I thought it was once. Yeah, it was twice. Collusion says, agree, Daniel Jones wasn't the only one who sucked. Daboll's play calling was rough. I like how do you have Leak, Slayton, Hyatt, and Robinson and only throw the ball 20-plus yards once? Pathetic. That's insane, right? Theodore says, all bets are off. What do you mean? They can't do anything until the season is over. Shane could give play calling back to Kafka. They could start Locke. Think they will? I think everything has to be on the table to fix it. But listen, if you give play calling back to Mike Kafka, I mean, you're basically firing Brian Daboll at that point if you do that. If the general manager does that, or if ownership does that, I mean, you're basically firing the coach, right? You might as well just fire him and make Kafka the interim in that point. What I mean, Theodore, about all bets are off are their decision is already made for next season, possibly if it continues to go in that route, they lose to Washington. I also mean Daboll mid-season firing is absolutely on the table. And listen, we've talked about it today. Daniel Jones' job, he might have already lost his job with this game. The other 2, they're on the hot seat, the GM and coach. The quarterback might have lost his job today. Nomad says, yeah, Wink's defense got roughed up yesterday, though. His Michigan defense got roughed up by Texas, who is really good in a college game, including some short fields at the end of the first half and the start of the second half. Obviously, yeah, Michigan got their ass kicked. But no Mets, let's face it. The Wink Martindale Giants defense gave them a schematic advantage, especially against mediocre to less than improved quarterbacks. He beat Lamar Jackson here, for God's sakes. What are we talking about? Michigan's defense. Come on, no Mets. Come on. Strider says, let me see. Strider's talking about he underthrew weapons and passes behind when he had time. T. Patrick says, thank you, Pat, for identifying Daboll as a key contributor. Amateurish coaching. I agree. Big Dog says, paid Brian Burns to be a ghost. Theodore says, with no pass rush, this defense will be destroyed. Vish says, I love your columns. You keep it real. Thank you, Vish. Barb says, Deshaun Watson worse than Daniel Jones. Yeah, right. G-Men says, if Daboll starts Daniel Jones next week, Daboll doesn't want to win. Surely he isn't dumb enough to get sacked because he doesn't have the gonads to bench Daniel Jones. Wow. Strider says, speaking of a ghost, how about Kayvon Thibodeau? Listless play, says T. Patrick. Shane and Daboll have got to go. That's what I think. I think Daboll last year didn't lose the locker room that saved him. I think it could happen quickly this year. Vish says, who can fix this team? Great question. Don't know. Any GM and coach out there, says Vish. Hard to say right now. I think Bill Belichick's the call at the moment. 27-3 Cowboys. Yep, 33-10 now. Team was unprepared to play. Coach needs to go, says Alex. No Met says Panthers scored more and looked better than Giants. Ryan says organization is a disgrace. Joe Shane sucks. Evan Neal and Thibodeau wasted picks. T. Patrick says Dallas managed to give a quarterback $240 million. Giants couldn't afford to pay Xavier or Saquon, or they say they couldn't pay him, right? Exactly. Simeon says, let's go get Bill Belichick. Shane is the problem, says T. Patrick. Strider says, exactly. They both have something in common. They are not good run supporters. About Burns and Thibodeau. We lost Saquon and McKinney for this BS. Hard not to view this. It's hard not to be even more critical about the Saquon decision now than it was a couple days ago. Man, could that look any worse at the moment? Bring in Belichick, says T. Patrick. Tim says, I would have felt better as a fan if Daniel Jones' interceptions were on deep flies or posts. All that speed at wide receiver, and we don't try to create something explosive. That helps make space underneath. That's a really good point. Tim. I think that's excellent observation. Yeah, like we had the pick six against Houston, and now the pick six against the Texans are like behind the line of scrimmage or just across the line of scrimmage, horizontal pass plays that even if they were caught, were going for minimal to no gains, right? That's a great point. Omega says ex-Giants that are ascending once they leave the team. Saquon, Julian Love, McKinney, Evan Engram, Geno Smith, Jahad Ward, Will Hernandez, right. Yeah, how about Hottie Ward with the quarterback today? And what were his final numbers here? Let's see. In that pass rush rotation. 2 quarterback hits. So Hottie in the box score there. So better numbers than Kayvon Thibodeau, Jahad Ward today. That's not exactly something you want to hear. Let's see. McKinney looks slow, says No Mets. I like him, but I can understand letting him walk. I mean, he did have a really nice anticipatory pick six in the first quarter. At least you can make money off this team, says Patrick. Bet the favorite and the under. Oh, the under was automatic. Also, I told you guys on Talkin Ball Live, could have made you a lot of money if you bet it. I told you Aaron Jones. I told you the Giants' run defense. That's what I felt like was the quietest thing I was most concerned about. And yeah, total, it was 26 for 111 for 4.3. But I thought Aaron Jones really had his way. 14 carries, 94 yards, 6.7 yards per carry for Aaron Jones. The Ty Chandler, 8 for 17, brought it down. But Aaron Jones, like a good running back, a top running back, had his way. The Giants never stopped the run well enough to deter Kevin Connell out of the game plan that he entered with. Strider says, Pat, will Daboll have the guts to bench Jones and put Lager DeVito in? Jones continues to struggle. Daboll must have the guts to bench Daniel Jones. Can't let personal feelings get in the way. Neither of those quarterbacks is better than Daniel, but you have to do something right now. Big Dawes says 3 years in the system. Not an excuse, even if it is complicated, right? James says, Big Pat, appreciate you for keeping it real. James, thank you for being here. Thanks for kicking us off with the first comment in the queue earlier as well. T. Patrick says, bring Belichick home. James says Jones needs to be gone. Robert says they don't like Jones. They know he stinks. Right, they tried to replace him this offseason. So the Giants already know, and they're still starting the guy. Matthew says, hey, Pat, look to me on TV like the receivers seem to be often in the same area. Did you see the same thing? Oh, you mean like running routes too close to each other? There were times, I know what you're talking about, where it seemed like guys were like running themselves into each other's areas for sure. I do think, though, that what I saw was Flores, like Brian Daboll kind of, someone mentioned the pressure coming on Daniel Jones, and Brian Daboll noted that Flores was not like sending the house all the time. He was just sending players from different areas. Like everybody is up on the line, and then different guys come and go. And I think what was happening was Jones's eyes and decision-making and the Giants receivers, their routes, their route trees, and their movement was at times being altered and dictated by the way that the Vikings players were dropping and what holes they were taking away in the zones that they were playing. So what I saw was the Vikings were kind of rerouting the Giants receivers into areas sometimes is what I saw. Obviously something you need to be prepared for, but the Giants were not to execute properly against. Let's see. Omega says, yeah, OBJ was hurt, but he still went to a Super Bowl winning team. James says a pick six in preseason, a pick six in the regular season. At least he's consistent. Strider says, Pat, Daniel Jones stepped into the hit more than twice. Yeah. But listen, I'm gonna really you guys are all correct. Daniel Jones holding the ball too long at times, stepping into some hits, not getting rid of it, making the decision. Had a horrible game. But I think anybody who watched this game and thinks the offensive line played well needs to watch it again. That's my opinion. My opinion. Like I said, I thought Andrew Thomas was lights out good. Have to watch again. I don't think John Michael Schmitz was necessarily like a weakness of this game. I have to watch again, but I don't think he was like a problem in pass pro. I remember one sack particularly where John Runyon Jr., Andrew Thomas on a stunt just got beat clean on the inside where Runyon was. I thought the leaky part of the line was the right side, Van Roten and Illuminor. That's what I thought. Robert says 5-12. I don't know if that's meant as a compliment or as a dig at the Giants, what they're going to do, Robert, because frankly, 5 feels like a lot at this moment. Vish says Wink would be a better head coach than Brian Daboll. Listen, I agree. I think Wink Martindale was somebody who the Giants ownership and the Giants organization did not want to leave. They did not want him out of the organization. They did not want him to no longer be here. But Martindale left an environment that he felt like he couldn't work in anymore. So that's the reality. Jones has tunnel vision, says Simeon. Eli Apple did better with the Saints as well, says Omega. Patrick says Jones doesn't like them rat traders that they are. I think you're talking about like the front office looking for a new quarterback. It's year 6, time's up, says Alex. James says we won't even be 5-12 playing like this. Yes, exactly. Let's see. Sherb says, I wish Jones would learn how to spin out of pressure situations. Yeah, also, like if he beats a pressure or he gets outside, extends a play, go make a play. Like if you elude a guy, throw the ball. Get rid of the ball. Don't keep holding it. James Williams says what on a lot of people's minds right now. Where were Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns? Bradbury also did better with the Eagles, says Omega. Heads are definitely rolling this season, says Big Dog. Strider says, I watched the first interception. He telegraphed it to the defensive end, made eye contact. As for the second pick, stared down the target. James says, we lost Saquon for this. Patrick says, I hope Jones gets them both fired. Best thing he could provide at this point. Iconic asks, why wasn't Jalen Hyatt playing much? So he did not prove in the offseason and the preseason that he is as reliable as they need him to be. The scouting report on him coming out of college about the route tree and what he can and can't run, that has been a challenge. Now, he's working hard. He's trying his best. He has made some catches at times in games last season and practice this year that have proven that he deserves certain opportunities. But Darius Slayton is more reliable, has better chemistry with Daniel Jones. You saw Jalen Hyatt had a drop today when he did finally get a good opportunity. Of course, that happens when you don't give a guy a lot of snaps and then you put pressure on one target like they did with Sterling Shepard last year. The other thing is they came out in very heavy personnel, 3 tight ends, 2 tight ends, max protect, a lot of either just Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson early on. So Slayton and Jalen Hyatt not on the field as much as, to be honest, they should have been early on. But that's that's another pick. Joe Schoen, 3rd round pick. Jalen Hyatt, supposed to be a deep threat, supposed to be unlocking this offense. Like, for example, again, I'm not making excuses for Daniel Jones here, but Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, like these are guys you drafted to help unlock the quarterback. Now you don't have Jalen Hyatt on the field much. What are we doing? Robert says Eagles are light years ahead of the Giants. Yes, they are. They have been for some time. Omega says plenty of examples of ex-Giants that are ascending after they leave. Is it the players or the culture at MetLife? No, it's the team, the lack of constructive infrastructure. It's the organization and bad decision-making. It's all of that. Tom Brady's commentary debut is overhyped, says No Mets. Oh, of course. John Runyon Jr., not a good enough run blocker, good at pass blocking, says Strider. Yeah, I'm telling you, this will be a continued theme throughout the year. I'm telling you, I've been seeing it all camp and in the preseason. The Giants do not run block well. Robert says this was humiliating. No Met says every team was light years ahead. Michael says, yeah, but Eli Apple has been on 3 teams. Giants wasted a first-round 10th pick on him. Joey B says, hate to say it, but Dex and Kayvon are divas right now in my eyes. Reporters got to ask the tough questions. You may not like them, but as leaders of the team, they got to handle that better. They sounded like brats. Yeah, I actually didn't hear Kayvon's full interview, so I need to get to the bottom of exactly what he said about the fans in that case. But Dexter is saying he doesn't respect the booze. That's not going to go over well. Simeon says Wandale is a check-down security blanket. Is Daniel Jones' check-down security blanket? Yes, he is. 6 catches on 12 targets for 44 yards from Wandale Robinson and a 14-yard rush. Let's see. Strider says, also the defensive end Van Ginkel was lined up at wide 9. That usually means speed, but he knew the screed was coming. Omega says, doesn't matter, still did better after he left, Eli Apple. Joel's fault, he is a big-time dud, says Robert. I think you mean Joe's fault there. All right, let's see. Simeon says, when I said Tyrod was the best quarterback on the team last season, I was attacked. You shouldn't be. That was the reality. Scott says, in the lack of time that these guys spend in the preseason together, it shows every year in the beginning. Watching what I saw today was just awful. Scott, the problem here is, and I asked Brian Daboll this today, said, does this catch you off guard and are you concerned because you changed your practice regimen, you practiced harder, you prepared harder knowing that the Dallas Cowboys game last year was a total disaster and was unacceptable in week 1, and yet you still lay a terrible egg, right? That, to me, is one of the most concerning things. That's the scary part if you're Brian Daboll and the Giants. Ian says, inept, having or showing no skill, clumsy. Another fan here, Strider, ripping Kayvon Thibodeau. Collusion says Kayvon and Burns disappear against good tackles. They're decent players, but not elite. Yeah, Darisaw is really good for Minnesota Vikings. Omega says JPP, another example, still balling out with 2 fingers after he left as well. Yep, with the Bucks. Jones is a regime killer, says Big Dog. Let's see. Simeon says, when Wandale went in motion behind the receivers, we knew the screen was coming. Robert says, Joe Schoen, handsome, young, know-it-all, disrespected Saquon Barkley. DeIlla says, if we draft a quarterback next year, that's a 2 to 3 year developmental time period that will put us in year 4 of the Burns contract. Why was it such a pressing need to spend that kind of money on him again? DeIlla, this is what I was saying when they made that signing and trade. And thank you. That's a really good question. As exciting as it was to land a big pass rusher, and as much as Joe Schoen was selling, like, listen, we're getting this guy under contract, and now we have a core that's going to grow together, and he's selling all that, right? As much as those parts of it seemed like something you could sell, that was a desperately aggressive move. That was the money they spent, the assets they used. That was a move by an organization that needed desperately to add big-time game-changing players now. So they give him the money that gets him on the field and on the team. And it's billed and pitched to you as, look at this long-term investment. But what it really is, it's like another version of like Darren Waller last year. And I'm not saying Brian Burns is retiring in a year. But what I'm saying is when they traded for Darren Waller, 3rd-round pick last year, it was the same idea of they're trading for a 31-year-old, in that case, tight end. They're trying to improve the team right now. Like, that's what they were doing. They were trying to improve the team right then and now. James says Kayvon and Burns, a.k.a. Casper and Slimer Ghost Connection. Wow. John says Carson Beck season. Robert says Joe Schoen doesn't draft well. Let's see. Simeon says Steve Tisch wants to sell. Betch says, what if Joe made Daboll take over play calling to expose him because those weird formations came back, but Mike wasn't around? Joe Schoen is on the record saying he prefers his head coach not call the plays. So we know how he feels. Collusion says, I like Bill Belichick, but come on, guys, there's a reason the Patriots are one of the worst teams in the NFL. He can't draft. He won 6 Super Bowls, Collusion, with the Patriots. But I know you're saying that the roster eventually caught up to him. Yeah, that part's true. Collusion, I think also, Belichick's older. I don't think he's returning to just any situation. There's a big debate really about like, listen, is Belichick going to come to the Giants to try to rebuild them in 4 years, right? Is that going to be the job he wants? And I can tell you this too. Belichick would be interested in returning to the Giants, I think, but they need to change the way they do things. And the Giants, when Joe Judge was here, for example, it was like, hey, come in here and change the way we do things. We know that we're a broken system here. And then it was like, oh, wait, but don't change that. Don't change that. Don't change that. Right. So that was kind of what happened with Joe Judge behind the scenes. And, you know, if that's the precedent set for if Belichick was going to come in and what he was going to say in his conversations with John Mara and Steve Tisch, then that would be bad news. Or it would mean he wouldn't come here. Big Dog says Schoen really put his job and credibility in the hands of Daniel Jones. Well, that's why it's such a bad look. But that's, you know, you see him walking around, obviously talking to Ryan Poles about how basically like, yeah, it must be nice to not be still searching for a quarterback, which is another way of saying we still don't have our guy, even though I'm paying this guy $40 million a year. So that's like, you know, Jones becomes the scapegoat and other people escape. That's the idea behind that kind of rhetoric. But that's ugly. And as we're talking about here now, that's just one of the problems. James says JPP, aka Eight Fingers, played better than Burns and Kayvon combined today. Strider says call Ernie Accorsi or Bill Belichick. This is crazy. TDB says time for Ryan Tannehill. I don't see why you wouldn't make a call. 6 years gave him a lot of chances. Joe messed up. Ernie Accorsi, says Vish. Let's see, Deilla says, I don't want Belichick in here unless he's bringing primetime Tom Brady with him. His drafts over the past 6 to 7 years with the Patriots were atrocious. Not who I want. Okay, echoing what we just heard a few comments ago. Robert says, Wink was right. Got rid of the wrong guy again. Agree. They didn't get rid of him. He resigned. Ken says, I said at the time of the Burns trade to sign Daniil Hunter and use the second rounder for a corner. That's what I thought too, Ken. Imagine what the Eagles and Cowboys do to us. Those games will seal Daboll and Shane's fate. Yeah, if Daboll gets there. Ernie wouldn't sign up for this dumpster fire, says Anthony. Not at his age, at least. Soft zone, oh my God, says Robert about the defense. I know. Listen, the defense and the soft zone, especially on that, you know, that 6-play, 70-yard drive that the Vikings had where Jefferson caught that 44-yard pass. I mean, that defense, the scheme, the plan on that drive was ridiculous. Ridiculous. So bad. By the way, the New England Patriots beat the Cincinnati Bengals today. So that's one of the teams supposedly in the running for the number one pick. One of the teams I think would be and is in the running for the number one pick. Beat the Cincinnati Bengals on the road today. Meanwhile, the Giants putting out stuff like this on the field. We're at a high 339 viewers and counting on Talkin Ball live postgame with Pat Leonard from MetLife Stadium. Almost 2 hours in, and we are cooking here with Giants conversation and insight from me and also from you, the fans, the diehards, the people who need either to lay on the couch, some therapy after watching a game like that, but also to kind of spin it forward, talk about what we saw, talk about what's coming, and break down everything about your favorite team. Brought to you by Boom Chaga, Bet Online, and Estate 98 Coffee. Go get all of those products. Guys, if you're new to our community, we are live, Talkin Ball Live on YouTube, PL and NFL, at Mondays, 9 p.m. on YouTube. We're live Thursdays at halftime and Thursday Night Football, and we're live after every Giants game, post-game from the stadium, home and away. Also have plenty of guest interviews coming already, plenty that you can watch on the channel, but also Benny Fowler and I will be talking every Monday, breaking down the entire league, and also random guests from around the league. Great insight. Stars, Adam Schefter has been on the pod. I mentioned Barry Sanders earlier. We've had plenty of Giants players. Adoree Jackson told me he would do the podcast going into the Notre Dame USC week, even though my Irish completely crapped the bed and their season is over. Disgusting. But you're going to get a lot of insight from our channel and from Talkin Ball Live. So thank you all for being here. Giants step backwards, says Rob. Simeon says Bill Belichick doesn't have to be GM. Head coach is enough to rebuild the culture. Strider says, Pat, was it true that O-line coach got into it with Evan Neal? I did not see that, Strider. Who pointed that out? I did not notice that. Anthony says, sad but true. D-Kit is hands down the Talkin Ball MVP, says Dave Z. Yes, thank you, Dave Z. D-Kit, you're the man. If guys, by the way, I know I'm still going in the chat. You can try to get to all your questions. If you want a comment or question answered first or one that's been sitting in the queue for a while and I haven't addressed, you can purchase a super chat or super sticker to go to the top of the queue, and I will answer or address it immediately. That's a way to support the channel and also to get my attention, to reward you for supporting the channel there. If not, pop your question in. I'll get to it. And like I always say, please hit the thumbs up, the like button right now on YouTube while we are live. That really helps our channel continue to grow, over 3,000 subscribers and counting. Patrick says, I hate being a fan of this team. Wayne says, I placed the Jones contract on ownership, not on Schoen. Wayne, it deserves to be on both. They both played a role. Robert says he had some running lanes and did not take them. Deilla says backups will do that every once in a while, make a great throw, but they can't do it consistently. Exactly why they are backups, like Daniel Jones has shown. No Met says, again, what GM and coach would be willing to come here? Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. No Mets, I think you're looking at people starting from scratch again, right? Like somebody just pointed out earlier. You drafted rookie quarterback, you're talking about a 4-year process now. Why are we supposed to believe that Joe Schoen's drafts will improve? Joey B says, you think if we hand the keys to Brandon Brown, we could turn this around? What do you think we got to do, Pat? Who are we going to bring in for GM and coach, and who are the candidates? I don't think Brandon Brown's the answer. I mean, he's been a part of all the decisions that they've made here, so he's helped make this bed that they're lying in at the moment. Joey B, the coaches that I think I've been looking at coming out of this season are Bobby Slowick in Houston, offensive coordinator down there. Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, a guy I think can do it as a New York guy. Of course, I don't know who his offensive coordinator would be, but you need to figure that part out, obviously. But I think he deserves an interview, another interview. They've interviewed him before. Bill Belichick, I think, has to be your first call, though, as a head coach. Obviously, even if you guys don't, want him to be the general manager. But I think, you definitely need to create alignment in the front office when you bring him in. Those are some of the guys who kind of top my list. I mean, everybody around the league, coaches tend to emerge as years and seasons go on. I mean, if Kellen Moore has a great year in Philadelphia, he could, again, be a hot name on the market and on the circuit, and a guy who maybe can help grow with a young quarterback and an offense. That presumably would be somebody to take a look at as well. So those are, what did we just name? 4 coaching candidates there, four names to keep an eye on. And then from a general manager standpoint, the top teams in the league right now, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Green Bay, Los Angeles, Rams. These are just some teams who I think if you're the Giants, Houston's doing a really good job right now. I think you need to look at the teams that are succeeding, having success at drafting. Baltimore is always one. Those are the clubs, I think, where you got to try to poach people who know what they're doing. San Francisco 49ers, obviously. So, you saw, in their last search, their top 3 finalists were Adam Peters, who is now the Washington GM. He was from the Niners. You had Ryan Poles coming from Kansas City. He's now with the Bears. You had Joe Schoen coming from Buffalo. He's now the Giants GM. So that's how it's going to play out. So I will go into and dig up more names on that front on those organizations and bring them to you guys sooner rather than later on one of our Talkin Ball lives coming up. John says, who's to blame? I know Jones should take most of the heat, but why is it that other teams can turn it around so easily and we're stuck in purgatory? John, I think it's like somebody said earlier. I know some people want to defend the line. Some people blame the line. Some people defend Jones. Some people blame Jones. Some people say it's not as much Daboll. Some people say it is. John, to me, it's everything. For example, some drives stall or end because Daniel Jones made a bad play, ran into a hit, whatever. Some drives short-circuited because of penalties. Some drives because of drops by receivers. Some of it was bad play calling. On defense, some of it was bad play calling. Some of it was the pass rush wasn't getting to the quarterback. The run defense wasn't working. To me, John, this is why also it obviously goes up to the general manager and past just the coaching staff, because it's roster construction. It's personnel. The Giants only have 51 guys on their active roster right now. You're allowed to have 53. They won't explain why they're doing it. I'm assuming it's financially motivated that they had only 51 players. How about this? We didn't even talk about this. Injury-wise, Gunnar Olszewski limited all week with a groin injury, doesn't get put on the injury report with a designation, but then is injured in warmups with his groin, doesn't play. Obviously, that's an aggravated injury that pre-existed that Gunnar Olszewski had. And then they don't have a real punt returner in the game. They put Darius Slayton back there. Now, there were penalties on the play on Minnesota, so they wouldn't have gotten the ball even if they recovered. But then Darius Slayton, who's not really a punt returner, muffs a punt. He's not really a punt returner. Why is he back there in a game? Totally unprepared, bad planning, bad preparation. Listen, when these guys got hired, they were first-time GM, first-time coach. And I think 3 years in, it's very clear there's a lot of things they don't know what they're doing. Jackson is optimistic. He says, we are going to do better. We were all drunk today. Simeon says Locke is another turnover machine. Robert says too many years have passed since 2022. Maybe not as fast as he used to be. Boycott the next game, says Ian. Unacceptable. Wow. Jackson says there are a lot of positives to take away. The worst part was the coaching, and that is the best part. Interesting. So Jackson is suggesting he thinks that the players could do better with better coaching. So that would be how you get to the point where, let's say, Daboll gets fired and Schoen stays. Let's see. All this and the GM didn't bring a good quarterback in, says Joey G. That's a really good point, Joey. It's like you don't believe in your starter, you're trying to replace him, and then the only solution you have is Drew Lock and then Tommy DeVito. That's a really good point. Ken says, hey, Pat, once you confront Daboll when he answers every question with we have to watch the tape, ask him what's so magical about this tape when he claims to watch it every week and we keep losing. Honestly, Daboll sounds like he's just going through the motions on these answers. He's providing no insight, nothing. I mean, he was asked about why they didn't play Micah McFadden after dressing him, even though he was hurt, but not on the injury report. And he's like, oh, we have to talk to the coaching staff. He's like, what are you talking about? Talk to the coaching staff. You didn't put an injured guy on an injury report, but then he didn't play because of the injury, but then you're not sure why he didn't play. See, Jackson feels like people should not boycott, says go be a Jets or Commanders fan if you're going to boycott. Well, that would be the next step if a fan was going to say, I've disowned this team completely. That has happened in the past. In fact, Jackson, I know people like, my father-in-law was a Jets fan when he was younger and eventually just said, screw it, I'm done. Just done with the team, right? And so, I know plenty of people, fans of various teams who are dysfunctional, eventually just throw in the towel, Super Unknown says, I agree with you, Pat. Locke did not lock it up. He looked unsure and unconfident in the preseason. Anthony says, why do I give so much of my time to this team? Why? Rhetorical and fair question. Jackson says, Daniel Jones didn't throw 3 interceptions. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I said that, but if I did, yeah, no, he threw 2 picks. Jackson wants Kafka to call the plays. NYOG says, I know the top teams rest their players during the preseason. I think we should have played our starters more during the preseason to try and get the kinks figured out. Yeah, I mean, it's all about how your team responds to things. Also, do you prepare well? Do you put them in best situations to succeed? Like the Giants, they can't afford to rest guys. I mean, last year, coming out of last year, they rested their whole team throughout camp, and it was a total disaster. The guys physically weren't ready to play. So Jackson says Daboll should not be calling plays. Big Dog says Kafka calling plays won't make a difference. Daboll, we had a good week of practice. Wow, who cares? It's Sunday that matters. Jim, I totally agree. Nothing aggravates me more when your team craps the bed than when the coach and the players are like, well, we had a good game plan. We had a good process during the week. Obviously not. Obviously not. Right? Bullshit. The game was almost unwatchable, Charles says. It was for a lot of fans in the stands. A lot of people left early. People are tired of it. MJ says the season already feels over. Agreed. Jackson says anyone who thinks Daboll should be calling plays after week 1 knows nothing about football. Hank says 2 wins, if that, for the season. Dom says, how much are we paying Burns and what draft pick was Kayvon? Burns is 28.2 a year, right? Almost, I think it goes higher than that towards 30 with incentives. And then Kayvon was number 5 overall pick. I think you're asking a rhetorical question there, but yes. Super Unknown says, I'm not sold on the defensive coordinator. I don't like his style. Yes, Burns and Kayvon were invisible. Just tank, honestly, says for Shoe KB. I'm tired of watching the C-team Giants. It's painful. Looking for the number 1 pick in the draft, says Charles. Jim says, did I hear someone say we had a Hall of Fame rush this season? Thibodeau, Burns, Bobby O, all MIA. Steven says, really, really disturbing 2 years in a row, opening game at home, and the team looked unprepared with no urgency. How did this coach get them to the playoffs the first year? I'm thinking he is no good. I'm telling you, the game plan work between Daboll and Martindale in year one, the defensive ability to take advantage of overwhelmed and, let's say, mediocre quarterback play that they were facing. They 6-1 start, plus they took down Lamar Jackson, which could you imagine Shane Bowen's defense facing Lamar Jackson versus Wink Martindale taking down Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens? Can you imagine that? But that was the key. The defense was giving them a schematic advantage, and Daboll that year crafted some smart game plans to stay away from their weaknesses, protect Daniel Jones from himself at times, protect their offensive line. They also had some hard-nosed O-linemen, guys like John Feliciano, Nick Gates, guys who hard-nosed tone setters, like dogs, as they like to say. We have dogs. Well, you let some dogs walk out the door, fellas, right? So to me, those are some of the reasons why they won, some of the reasons they're not winning now. Also, like even though Daboll had some good game plans to kind of go to strengths and stay away from weaknesses that year, like I think someone said it earlier, it's gotten predictable now what he tries to and likes to do with Daniel Jones and with this offense. Like people are not surprised by how they attack anymore. Shane was the one who didn't pick up Jones's 5th-year option, in essence, cost them $32 million extra on last year's cap and liable for up to $120 more with no other quarterback in the wings. Legend, says T. Patrick. Same shit, different years, says Chronicles. Hard to watch, says Charles. Jackson says the Giants have such a bad vibe in their stadium. Yes, Jackson, really good point. I guess you were here. So, Jackson, the Giants fans, like, you know what was interesting in the preseason? Now, listen, this is how they did it last year too, but it was interesting to me seeing how they only played the first string players really in Houston on the road. And so they hadn't put their team in front of the home fans yet until this game. And so there's a reason for that. And Jackson points it out. Jackson's a really good point. It's because it's toxic. The team creates a toxic environment when it's play, and then the fans are done with it. Super Unknown says, I'm tired of hearing about Saquon. They offered him money. He did not want it. He is gone, so let it go. No, he wanted more guarantee money, and they wouldn't give it to him, Super Unknown. And also, Saquon, as he said on the record, was upset with leaks coming out of the organization. Shane getting outclassed from every angle, says Big Dog. We are unlikely to win 6 this season. Time to start talking about the 2025 draft, says Jim. That's correct. It's like a dead nightclub that no one wants to go to, says Jackson about the stadium. Wow. Woo! Jackson, that's another comment that's going in a daily news story tomorrow, man. You guys are lighting it up. Bombo says, forget about Locke. Who's at backup head coach? Probably Kafka. Jackson says they need to move their stadium. Super Unknown says, let's see how things play out, guys. Let's see how things play out. Almost 300 people in the chat. This is great, Pat, says Joey B. And now we're up to 331. I think we got up to 350 a few minutes ago. We are churning and cooking here on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard, New York Daily News columnist, NFL columnist, and Giants beat writer. This is my 9th season covering the NFL. We are live Mondays at 9 p.m., Thursdays at halftime of Thursday Night Football, and after every Giants home and road game from the press box, after I come out of the locker room from talking to the players and to Brian Daboll. We also have plenty of guests on the podcast, Benny Fowler and I breaking it down every Monday, all the action in the NFL, not just Giants, but we will connect it to the NFC East and to the Giants and to what we see going down. And as well, several special guest appearances, more content. We got merch coming. You saw our unveiling. You see the new logo here now, our rebrand, thanks to Adi Santoso Bustaman, who's excellent, complete pro. Adi, really appreciate him. Let's see. It looks like we got another super chat in here. Oh man, guys, looks like I'm not going to make it through the entire chat of questions here because we're at 2 hours and 15 minutes. And man, oh man, there's a lot more down here. All right. Oh, and there's some super stickers here that I have to catch up on, guys. So let me get to your super stickers as well. All right. So we got Eds says, Pat, would Mara be interested in Mike Vrabel? I don't know that. That's a good name to throw into the mix, Eds. Thank you. I know Vrabel got a – listen, if they were going to say, Joe Judge was too hard on people, right, then Mike Vrabel's not your guy, right? Like Mike Vrabel is, my way or the highway type guy. 1 second. We've been going so long. We're on the clock here. Oh, okay. Is another half hour okay? Or okay. How about by 8:30? I'll be out of here. Thank you. All right, we're on the clock. We're so popular here on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard. We are on the clock. They're about to shut the stadium down, and we're still going here. All right, so Eds, he's a my way or a highway guy, or the highway guy. Mike Vrabel is. So, I think. Listen, they have brought some people from Tennessee here already. Ryan Cowden is an advisor to Joe Schoen. There are Tennessee people in the infrastructure here already, so maybe you that's a way to pivot. That'd be interesting, though. I mean, Patriot guy, even though he's not a Belichick coach who was groomed, he was a player for Belichick. But that's a good name to throw into the mix. You're right. That is a good name to throw into the mix. Let's see who else checked in. And by the way, right now, so we're gonna wrap up by 8:30 here. So it is 8:07 p.m. Eastern right now. So what I'm going to do is any super chats or super stickers, I will answer. And then what I'm going to do is skim through the chat and try to see comments or questions that aren't repeats of things we've already talked about before we wrap up. But like I said, super chat, even if it's not an expensive one, if you have something that you really want answered before we get out of here at 8:30. All right. LFGM says DJ is costing us in play money and a roster spot. Hard to argue with that. Curtis, thank you so much for rewarding us there with that super sticker. Really appreciate the support from you. Keith Wilson checks in and says, just need to clean whole house, including scouts and player personnel. No reason we can't. No, it's no reason we have so many developmental guys starting. We can't evaluate talent. Right. Not only that, but think of this, guys. Think of the fact that at positions like corner and offensive line, where Joe Schoen has drafted Josh Azudu at guard, Josh Azudu guard tackle, Marcus McKeithen, who was cut, right? Tackle guard. Cordell Flott, corner, right? Deontay Banks, corner, whatever. You have an organization that had to sign Adoree Jackson and Greg Van Roten, veterans, at those two spots because you didn't draft players well enough at those spots, and they're not developing and they're not turning out to be good enough players, right? So that's an indictment of your personnel process. How about the fact that they've spent assets, meaningful assets, 3 straight years on a tight end? Daniel Bellinger, 4th-round pick. Darren Waller, 3rd-round pick trade. Theo Johnson, 4th-round pick. Why? Because you're struggling to get it right, because you can't get it right. All right. Like I said, super chats if you want something answered before we wrap up at 8:30 Eastern. Otherwise, I'm going to try to get through and answer things that aren't repeats. Novice says, what is the Giants' identity? What do they want it to be? Teams like the Ravens have changed coaches and GMs. They still have the same identity. Novice, very cutting and in-depth and interesting and savvy observation by you. Somebody who clearly knows the game and knows organizations and leadership. Novice, that's a really good point. And this is something that Mike Lombardi, the former GM, when we were watching Hard Knocks, he mentioned on his podcast, GM Shuffle, he mentioned one thing that really frustrated him watching it was that he felt like the Giants were just picking players out of a hat based on preferences of talent and skill or whatever, and that they weren't doing enough of, okay, let's define the umbrella of the team we want to be and our identity there, and then fill that and fit it in with how we select players, how we draft them, and where we see them fitting within that philosophy. Like, to me, novice, it's about, first and foremost, defining what that philosophy is. Like they say, we want smart, tough players, right? That's a football player. I mean, that doesn't define anything about a team. Like Shane Bowen saying the other day, he wants an aggressive defense. His defense is aggressive. That's the way he coaches. What do you mean your defense is aggressive? Every defense is aggressive. Like, as far as like, we want to hit people, we want to tackle. Like, that doesn't describe a philosophy. You know what I mean? It's football. It's tackle football. So, novice, what their identity is, what they want it to be, is they want to be a team that pushes people around in the trenches and has the skill and ability to make explosive plays on both sides of the ball. So that means taking the ball away on defense, and that means making big plays with your skill players in the passing game on offense. So, I would say they were 0 for 4 on what that identity is that they want it to be. But, again, it's not adequately defined, right? It's not adequately defined, I think, is the best way I say it. Let's see. Steven says, season ticket holders pick 6 up left. And I have stayed at bad games through the year, starting last year. Week 1, I'm done leaving early with this garbage. Let's see. Okay. I can't tell exactly what you were saying there. So you're saying you won't leave early now because you've been doing it too much, or you've seen it happen too much? Oh, sorry about that. No, so you're saying through the years you were staying at bad games, but after last year and now this week 1, you're done and you're leaving early. Got it. For Show KB says, shout out to you, Pat. You're the only bright spot within this Giants franchise and neighbors. I know he's ready for DJ to be gone. No wonder he wasn't happy to get drafted here. For sure. Thanks for saying that. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoy my content and also the conversations that we're generating here. Like I said, really, like I said about what we're doing here, really appreciate all the support that you guys are providing here in the community at Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard, Believe Network, YouTube, PL and NFL, and the New York Daily News, and continuing to build. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Dilla says Saquon wouldn't change any of this even if he was here. Shaking my head. Saquon would have wasted away on this team over the next 3 years. You would have paid him to be maybe a fringe playoff team at best. Makes no sense. I hear what you're saying there. Big Dog says, I miss Wink. No doubt. No doubt. All right, let's see. It was looking like a Madden game on rookie with suggested plays. Joey B says of Brian Daboll's play calling. Super Unknown says, this reminds me of the Dallas loss last year at this time. Was not as embarrassing, but just as heart-wrenching. Interesting. I think it was just as embarrassing, although it was a different game. The only thing better about it was that it wasn't this standalone game in prime time. Let's see. Jackson says, move to Lake Success, New Hyde Park, New York, the original location of United Nations. All right, Jackson, we'll remember you said that. See you saying you're copywriting that. All right. Michael says, put pressure on Coach Daboll to get rid of Jones, please. Hey, I was the one asking him in the press conference, did you consider a quarterback change in the game? Or are you considering it for Washington? So I was the one asking those two questions. If Daniel Jones plays like this, do they have a legit backup plan? It's Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, or go sign somebody right now. Dave Z says the Giants need Boom Chaga and we need magical mushrooms. How else to tolerate this team? Big Dog says this is the result of bad business. You don't let your star players walk for nothing. Facts, Pat. No doubt, Big Dog. Big Dog's bringing it today. We need to mix up the defense a little, no doubt. Evan says, my thinking is if Shane gets fired or not, there will be a new quarterback here next year, no doubt. Ryan Tannehill says Chronicles. Jackson Black says to me, you are a scrub reporter. I will demolish you. Jackson, be nice. We can disagree. We can debate stuff. Be nice. I'm giving you credit on stuff. I don't know where this angst is coming from, Jackson, but be nice, man. Let's keep it civil. That's like a player haters ball comment right there. That you remember the Chappelle skit, player haters ball? That's like Jackson's best attempt at the player haters ball. Why don't you vacuum that coat, man? Among the problems with Daniel Jones is he shows no leadership qualities, says Ron. He looked lost today. Pat, dope content as always, says Blazin. How was the team in the locker room? Blazin, great question. They all had kind of glassy, like look in the distance, looks in their eyes, looked discouraged, looked defensive at times, looked frustrated. Darius Slayton said something like, it's not about a lack of belief, but we just have to go and do it, or else it really doesn't matter whether we believe or not. So I think my takeaway, Blazin, like I heard from one person that mentioned that Burns and Dexter Lawrence got some pressure and didn't use Kayvon's name. I talked to a couple players. I talked to one player. I think I told you, like Deonte Banks, he was just kind of staring kind of like this. But it wasn't about like me asking him questions. It was about here we go again type stuff. You know what I mean? Let's see. Super Unknown says, yeah, Pat, I said that they should go for someone like Rattler. You said the Giants like tall guys. DJ is tall and he still can't see the field. Absurd. Super Unknown, I appreciate you saying that because they were looking at Rattler. I know that for a fact. And I was reporting that during the draft. I thought they might pluck him in the middle rounds. I really don't know why they didn't. I think, honestly, here's why I think recently, like just talking to people, I think the reason they didn't draft a quarterback in the middle rounds is because it's not only because they had a lot of needs on the roster, it's also because they I think are married to their value on their board too much. Like you don't want to ignore value. Positional value matters a lot to Joe Schoen. And I get it. And of course, we always were begging like people like Dave Gettleman to use positional value just once in your decision making, right? But it strikes me that the Giants are married a little too much to their draft board, where, like, for example, they'll say, like maybe they liked Spencer Rattler. He just didn't get to the next pick where we thought he was worth it. It's like, but what about reading the draft board and understanding where you think he might go ahead of you? And if you want that developmental quarterback, going and getting him, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I think that they're really missing the ball there. They're kind of missing the boat. Watching the Eagles on Friday night, watching the Cowboys now, the Giants are in a world of hurt in this division. Yeah, Scott, the only question is whether they'll finish in third or last, and we'll find that out next week. Bookend Tackle says, play calling was bad, DJ was bad, receivers dropping balls, penalties. Light years better next week. They have to be for me to be optimistic. This was bad all around offensively. Dave Z says to Jackson, who was trashing me and is defending Daniel Jones, Jackson, are you really Kay Adams? Dave, oh, man, Dave with the comment of the chat. That was great, Dave. All right, let's see if there's any other comments in the queue. We have about 8 or 9 minutes left in the chat, guys. So if you have another question or comment, please drop in a super chat if you definitely want me to get to it, because otherwise I'm continuing to go through the chat and trying to pick out the ones that stand out or aren't repeats, but I might not get all the way to the bottom because they're kicking me out of the stadium here in the next 10 minutes. Let's see. All right. shots taken down the field. Didn't play with edge or passion. Offense was very vanilla. The same old story. Why expect any different? No doubt. Let's see. Enough is enough, says Michael. Let's see. Great questions for Daboll after the game on the podium, says Solving. He was outcoached, like you predicted. Who gets the biggest slice of blame pie? I think definitely Schoen and Schoen, Daboll, and Jones. But Daniel Jones didn't play well enough, but Schoen and Daboll deserve that. It starts with them. It starts with them. I mean, the roster's not good enough. The draft picks aren't good enough for developing. The coaching was bad. The play calling was bad. A2Z Me says, thanks for giving us all an avenue to vent, Pat. We need it. Junkin says, what do you think of a Hendon Hooker trade with the Lions? I would love to do. He's still a developmental player. I don't think Hendon Hooker is popping in right now and being a great quarterback for a team, for an NFL team. But, developmental guy. I think also, though, he's kind of ascending as like the next guy in Detroit, too. I think they really like him. So not sure that they would trade him at this point. Ray says, what's the status on benching a quarterback so you can cut him with no pay? Ray, basically Daniel Jones, the injury guarantee next year, $23 million, kicks in March if he can't pass a physical at that point. So if the Giants want to avoid that injury guarantee, then you bench him at any point when he's healthy to make sure he doesn't sustain a debilitating injury that prevents him from passing the physical in March. Some people were talking about Deion Sanders' son, Shedeur. Dave Z says Deion won't let Shedeur come to the Giants. They will find a way to win a couple meaningless games and take themselves out of the running for the top QBs in the draft. Yeah, that doesn't feel like the right marriage to me either. Mark says, I'm glad I didn't go to Meadowlands to see the game. My son had a hockey game about the same time. Thank God. That's how I felt about yesterday's Notre Dame loss to Northern Illinois. I was coaching a soccer game and I didn't see it. And as my brother texted me, lucky you. Let's see. Diggy says, Pat, who asked Dexter Lawrence if he could hear the fans? And what are your thoughts about the question and Dexter's reaction? That was Paul Schwartz from the New York Post. I understand what Paul was asking, though. Like, he was basically saying, I think he was getting at it was like, how did it make you feel? What did you think of it? But the way he asked it was, did you hear it? Right? So, of course, I don't blame Dexter for responding in a way like, what do you mean did I hear it? Like, I was in the middle of the stadium. Of course I did. But I think what Paul's point was he was getting to what he asked next, or what Tom Rock followed up with was like, well, how did that make you feel, right? Barb says, on my second glass of wine, thanks for nothing, Giants. Bangkok says there's only one way to describe Daniel Jones. He's a spaz. All right. Looks like another super chat in the queue. Ryan says, how does Pat Leonard fix this? What I see is Mara always meddles in decision-making, fires them before they can see their plan through. Ryan, interesting, a good point to bring back up as we round out our chat here. I think that the way I would fix this is my opinion. Now, again, I don't have the guys in the hopper in my pocket ready to hire tomorrow, but I think what I would do is I would fire the GM and coach this year if this is what it looks like if this is what it stays, is what you're asking me, right? If this is the team we see on the field, that this is going to be the Giants from here on out, you fire everybody and you ask Bill Belichick what his price is. I know people say you didn't draft well enough, those kinds of things. Guys, why not? I mean, at this point, why not? Vish, yes, I do have an email. It's pleonard@nydn. My email is pleonard@nydailynews.com. So if you want to write me an email, pleonard@nydailynews.com. Omar says, can you hire me? You mean to the Giants? Hey, you could help. Super Unknown says, I love you, Pat. Always take my calls. I mean it. You got it. Oh, Omar's talking about working for me part-time, I think. Omar, DM me on Instagram. Ask me exactly what you're interested in. Ryan, thanks for that super chat. Let me see what else I can get to here. We have a few minutes left. So anyone who wants a question in last minute, I'm wrapping it up right before 8:30 here. So anybody who wants to get in a question last minute, guarantee that it's in. Purchase a super chat or super sticker. If not, no worries. We've been going for 2 hours and 30 minutes. Please, before you leave, though, hit the like button as we are live here. Please hit the like button. That is something that helps us drive subscriptions, drives attention to the YouTube channel, tells people who aren't already aware of Talkin Ball Live what we are doing here. Let's see. Socrates, what's up? Says, what's worse is I live in Viking country and I'm going to have to hear all these Norwegians run their mouths. I'd like to be able to go into Monday not dreading the BS I'm going to get. Sheesh. Oh, that's tough. That's tough, Socrates. Just going to have to take it. I'm still stuck by that comment earlier about the fan who said that he came home and then took the jersey off to go food shopping. Patrick says, I'm ashamed of this team. Wow. So much frustration from the fans. But like I said, this is what we saw at the stadium today too. OG Knockout, a loyal here to the channel, says, I feel vindicated now. Everyone sees what I've been seeing since his second year. Yeah, let's not call people dumb. Let's be nice. Like I said, let's be nice. Luann, the eternal optimist, says, Giants will make the playoffs. Everybody relax. Eric says, that's how you outline if the problem is coaching. You see the Bucs drop 40 on the Commanders. If the Giants can't crack 20, that's your outlying problem. Great point. As we spin it forward to week 2, let's take a look at the Giants' opponent. Washington lost 37-20 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road. So the Giants will be going in to Washington for the Commanders' home opener. Jaden Daniels had 184 yards passing on 17 of 24 passing and 88 yards rushing on 16 attempts. That's a lot. 2 touchdowns rushing as well. Brian Robinson had a touchdown run. Looks like the passing was really spread out, and the running backs actually led them in receiving. Austin Eckler, 4 for 52. Zach Ertz, 3 for 28. So it'll be like matchups on the linebackers and safeties for the Giants. Let's see, how many sacks did the Bucs have? Only 2 sacks. That's interesting because it looked to me like the Giants could have an advantage with their offensive line with their defensive line and their pass rush against the Washington offensive line. But yeah, to your point, Baker Mayfield, 4 touchdown passes, 289. Looks like Bucky Irving. Oh, I loved him as a player, as a prospect coming out of Oregon. 9 rushes, 62 yards. Chris Godwin, 83 and a touchdown. Mike Evans, 61, 2 touchdowns. Jalen McMillan, 1 touchdown. Wow, 3 receivers, over 60 yards. 4 TD passes by Baker, 146.4 QB rating. So that's a great point. We're going to see it against the Commanders, or we are not. Guys, I'm going to use some of your comments for a story in the Daily News tomorrow, because some of your fan comments about how ashamed you are at what you're going to do and not go to the games really does strike home with ownership. Let's see. Kyle, I skipped your comment. Where was it? I missed it. I'm going to miss some because we've been live for a long time here, and it's the queue honestly has been too long for me to get to everything. I'm really sorry. Drop it in now, Kyle. Drop it in now, please. Please drop it in now. I'll read it. Like I said, last minute. They're kicking me out of the stadium. Last minute. Get it in. Hit those like buttons, please. Hit those like buttons while we are live. Takes 2 seconds. Takes 1 second. Just hit like while we are live. That really helps the engagement on the channel. Let's see. I'm a fan says another great chat. Thanks, Pat. You got it, Vish. Let's see. Tommy says health and wealth to all. Dave G says 3 minutes at the most. Omar says love this channel. Let's see. Next one, says Kyle. All right, next one. Yeah, Monday. I'll answer your comment Monday. So tomorrow we'll do a Talkin Ball Live. We'll get on that one. Super unknown. You got it. Tim says, have a safe ride home, Pat. Great work as always. I do not have my own office at the stadium, but I'm allowed to use one of the booths here in the suites right down the hallway from where John Mara hangs out watching the games here on here at MetLife Stadium. Remember, guys, Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard, Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard postgame is brought to you by the Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga has also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order, and if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you'll get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. Also brought to you by BetOnline and by Estate 98 Coffee. Go to estate98.com/talkinball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. Takes less than 10 seconds to make a delicious Estate 98 iced coffee, all natural specialty coffee with no sugar, convenient for on the go. Guys, remember, please, before we're done, hit the like button real quick. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. PL on NFL on YouTube, on the Believe Network, New York Daily News. Super Unknown says, bless you, Pat. Where is the link for Super Chat? It should be where you add a comment, underneath where you add a comment, Super Unknown. NYOG says, thanks, Pat. This is a great channel. You got it. Ryan says, you are right, Pat. Everyone needs to be fired. This organization proves what they are. D says, what quarterback do I like for the draft next year? We'll talk more about that. I did think Quinn Ewers, the Texas quarterback, looked good against Michigan. Very good. Giants need some Boom Chaga, says Tommy. No doubt. Guys, thank you always for checking in. Remember, super chats and super stickers in the future, especially when the chat gets filled like it did today, one of our most popular live chats yet here live post game. Purchase those super chats and super stickers to make sure you are heard. This is Pat Leonard signing off from MetLife Stadium. Thank you so much, everybody, for supporting. Thank you, everybody, for the super chats, starting with D-Kit and everyone else who chipped in. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next time. Much love, says Dave Z. Safe drive home. See you later on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard, Believe Network, Apple, Spotify. If you're listening on audio, come join us next time on Monday, September 9th on the YouTube channel. See you later.